what's up? Allison, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate it. Welcome to Normal America Show. I've got a show for you tonight. A good show? We're hoping. Thanks for being here. Host robnoerr. Got a debate lined up here at 8 p.m., so we'll be jumping into that. Should be a lot of fun. I have to admit, I am least prepared for this debate in any debate I've been in probably 2 years. I did not know I had a debate until probably 5:30. I had no idea what the topics were. I still don't know what the topic is. There's like a whole potential. Critical race theory, transgenderism, puberty blockers, Trump indictments. I don't know. Aftershock reached out to someone, gave them a litany, so whatever they want to talk about, we'll talk about. TikTok streamer, again. Hopefully we have better luck this time than with the last debacle last Wednesday. But I think I'm more optimistic that this conversation will go better. So hopefully that's the case. But I've been brutally busy, in a good way, mostly. So had my wife's family reunion Sunday. Obviously Labor Day yesterday I did stuff with the family. Last Friday we went to an Offspring show. Today is my brother's birthday. Tomorrow is my 9th anniversary with me and my wife. I'm normally supposed to be home in the afternoon, but because of various work conflicts, we had dinner plans, which now aren't going to happen because on my anniversary, I'm going to end up working till probably 8 or 9 at night. So I won't be able to do the things that I intended, go out to dinner or whatever with my wife. So we'll make it work. We'll do something. Friday, I then go in for a training all day at work. So I won't be able to spend Friday with her. Possibility then I work all day Saturday and Sunday. So I haven't done much streaming. I apologize for that. I've just been really, really busy between work and family stuff. So family stuff all good. Work's been fun, but work's work, So hopefully my wife's not going to be too upset that plans are going to be askewed tomorrow because of work business. But, it's what happens when you drink your way through college. Then you have to work tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of hours. So, but what can you do? Now, before we get the show going proper, like I said, I'm not even bothering to prepare for anything topic-wise because I have no idea what the topics will be. But I do have something important that I want to share. I appreciate all financial donations that I get. I would call myself like lower middle class maybe, or upper lower class. I don't know. I basically live paycheck to paycheck, but I ain't missing many meals. We're not missing any bills at this point, but if a catastrophic emergency came up, maybe I would be strapped financially. Fortunately, I have a job where I could just work insane hours. Here I am begging for donations. So I appreciate all the donations that you all give me. That sort of stuff, the money you give me that I put back in the show, or, I get new camera equipment, I got a new microphone for my phone, so hopefully my spaces won't sound as lispy, things like that. That's less important than when a crisis occurs in real life. One of the nicest people that I've met on this platform is a guy he goes by the name Let's Be Frank. He has several YouTube channels because he has a channel where he talks politics and then one where he deals more with just Bible studies and things like that. Really great guy. Legitimately one of the nicest guys that I've interacted with online. Just really stand-up person. And also, I think, great content. He was in Florida, and Hurricane Isabel ended up hitting his home. And he's going to be in the hole financially, really in a bad way. So another great person, Sarah Kane, who goes by the Crusader Gal, it generously set up a Give, Send, Go where they're asking for donations. I put this out on Twitter, but I was really busy this weekend, so I didn't have a chance to really tell people. So I just wanted to... Thank you so much, Maurice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really do. Thank you. I wanted to put this link out there for this Give, Send, Go, and I'll show you the page here. Uniquely Us and Let's Be Frank are his two YouTube channels. The house he shares with his wife and children was hit by a falling tree during Hurricane Idalia. There's major damage, making the house temporarily unavailable. Make matters worse, they don't have insurance on the home. And you can see some of the pictures here. He has a video up. It's not good. And it's, you know, even people that I don't necessarily care for, I don't wish terrible things like this to happen. And, you know, for this to happen to a really great guy like Frank, you know, I really hope that people could come together and give some donations. So, obviously, I understand times are tough for everyone. I get that. But if you have a couple dollars, maybe instead of tossing them my way here, if you were going to in the next, you know, month or so, maybe consider giving it to Frank's Give, Send, Go. So, I'll put that link out there. You guys could check it out for yourselves. But, you know, I think that it's already doing pretty good. They have a goal of $10,000 and they have $3,500. So, you know, I'd prefer Give, Send, Go to a company, you know, such as, what's the other one that's garbage that gives out your information and crap? GoFundMe. They're garbage. Give, Send, Go seems to be better than them. So, but I'm sure someone will tell me why they're terrible too. But we did never get that zero return. So prayers out to you, Frank. I hope everything's great for you and your family. I'm sorry you're going through this. And I understand I don't ask for donations and stuff like that very often, but I think this is a unique situation. So keep Frank in your prayers, even if he can't donate. I'm sure he'd really appreciate it. So, but he's a trooper, and he has a strong family, and I know that they'll get through it. So thanks for listening to that, and consider checking out that link. And I might, at the end of the show tonight, put that out there as well. So for this debate tonight, the person I'm debating, I think he goes by the name Tommy, but his handle is My Doode, M-Y, and then D-O-O-D-E. I think that's My Doode. I know almost nothing about them. I haven't watched one of their videos. But Aftershock set up this debate, so it gave a litany of topics, and I think that instead of going in-depth on any one topic, maybe it'll be, at least to start, more of a breadth of topics that we'll try to cover, which is fine. I prefer to hammer down on one topic for multiple hours, but I have no idea how long the debate's supposed to last. I literally have no idea of the details of this debate. It was something that we were talking about doing last week, but because of the scheduling and everything, and I had 2 debates last week, plus then my work, having the concerts, family reunion and stuff, I was unaware that it got pushed to this week. I thought it was something we'd schedule in the future, but here we are. We're here today, so I'm excited. I'm always down to debate, and I think it's only fair because I had little input, and I'm not quite sure what all the messaging was behind the scenes here, that we leave my opponent talk about what he wants to talk about. I think that that's the only fair thing to do, because if he had time to prepare or something like that, I don't think it's fair to just totally change the topic or anything like that. So, one thing I will say, if it gets out of hand like last week, I am prepared to put a timer up on the screen. With that timer, it might be something like, he talks 2 minutes, then we have a minute where we can go back and forth, then I talk 2 minutes uninterrupted. Maybe we'll do something like that because we don't have a moderator. That won't make things perfect, but it may make things a little more streamlined because, you know, the truth is, as much as you would like to think that you'd be able to have these sorts of conversations without a moderator, it's almost always impossible. Unless it's with someone that you know. Like me and Pisco could do a debate without a moderator. Me and Destiny could do a debate without a moderator. Me and Andrew Wilson could do one without a moderator. But when you're talking people that you don't know, why is the guy I'm debating called the Dude? I don't know. Is that what he's called? I don't know. I don't know anything about him. But as we wait, how was everyone's Labor Day? I hope everyone had a fantastic Labor Day. I did. I had a great time. Got to go out on the boat with my wife and my son. He's a maniac. Like, hopefully drinking lake water is not too harmful, because the guy He's just like the lake's like a big cup of water, you know. He was crazy. Yeah, we'll do it with Bill O'Reilly. We'll do it live. Yeah. His character sketches a doodle. I don't know. So, waiting to hear. I'm not quite sure what platform we're going through. I would assume Discord. I think he's going to go through my Discord channel. But sometimes you get little things, little technological hiccups. So we'll see if we can work through those. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. Thanks for the money for Let's Be Frank, too. I really appreciate both of those. Very cool. I don't know anything about this person at all. I've literally... honest to good... Aftershock sent me a link to his channels, but I've been so busy all day. I didn't know I was debating this guy till today, so some of the topics... So I'll give you the list of the topics that Aftershock sent him as possibilities to talk about. Aftershock really stretching me here. Critical race theory, Biden corruption, COVID reaction, vaccine tyranny, transgenderism, sexual indoctrination of children, Russiagate, leftist fascism, left-wing hypocrisy, Biden's record, Trump indictments. And apparently he said all of them? Okay. I don't have a problem talking 90% of those. I will say both the critical race theory and sort of a puberty blocker discussion. I've had those debates many times before. That was on an old computer, so a lot of the evidence that I had and stuff is not saved on my current computer. So there is a possibility if I say, look, I read a study that says this, and he says, show me that study, I'm not going to be able to bring it up. I'll try to look it up, but I don't know. But I will talk about anything. I don't care. If he doesn't like any of those topics and he was prepared to debate something else, fine by me too. Like I said, I'm not worried. What's the worst that could happen? Someone knows their stuff more than me. That's okay. Then I learned something. So, most of the time it doesn't happen that way though. But it doesn't bother me at all. I like debating. I hope... that this isn't a shit show like last week. I hope that it's someone that's actually willing to have a back and forth instead of like that ridiculous character last week. But if that's the way it is, I got to get better at debating those people as well. I think I do fine, but I'm trying to hone in on my strategies when someone's basically bad faith. And that video's up. It's the last video I did on YouTube, so if you want to watch that debate, it's only like a 2-hour debate. But then I was bored afterwards and went back and rewatched the debate in my live stream, which isn't everyone's cup of tea. There you go. Ogre says, if I lose this debate, he'll stop watching me and start watching my opponent. So now I have incentive to lose. So I'm doing good, Ninja. I'm going to throw this one just to get Ogre out of here. When I was debating for sport, you mean like in college, did I learn something during the debate besides how bad lefties can be? Well, there's two ways to look at that. When I debated in college, I learned stuff all the time. The specifics I learned on the specific topic stayed with me less than sort of critical thinking, how to formulate an argument, how to connect to a judge, an individual, things like that. There were certainly a lot of... I would say you learned more on the specific topic preparing for the debate than you do during the debate. Very rarely is something brought up in the debate that you hadn't heard of. Because most of what's going on is you're scouting your opponents and you could see all the... judges would put all the evidence that they saw in the round up on sort of a spreadsheet. And so you would be able to look and say, oh, okay, Wake Forest team, the team names were the two partners' last initials in alphabetical order. So like my team name was Clarion HN. So someone could say, Clarion HN, round 3, what evidence did they read? Bam, 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 bam. So most of the time you had a good idea. And there were obviously always adding on to that. But rarely was it like, holy cow, that's something I never even thought of. So there was tons and tons and tons of research that went in before the debate. So that's where you learned most about a specific topic. Now, on here, like debating on here, have I ever learned things like on a topic from my opponent? Sure. There have been times where I've learned, like, I'll give you a good example. I learned debating the game stunts thing, how the app Robinhood worked. I didn't know. There are specific things that have either I've learned while I'm debating or have prompted me to go research and that I've learned. But in general, most of the time, with talking on the things of corruption and like I do, you'll learn little specific things that are addendums, but you're not, rarely is it like that I just heard, I learned when Brexit was, rarely are you just wholesale learning like, holy cow, I'd never heard of that. It happens. I'm not well read. I'm really not. That's why when I read a book, I'm always talking about it, because I don't read enough. So that's why you've heard me talk about the Gulag Archipelago a lot here in the past 3 months, because I read it. So it's like, oh, that's what I'm talking about. Which, by the way, everyone should read. It's an excellent book that I think is incredibly important. The Dangers of Socialism and Communism. Reading is overrated. Just go with your guy. There you go, Banana. I believe my opponent's a left-winger. Yeah. I think that's... I don't know. You know how people are, there is a left wing. What's that mean? I believe my opponent's someone who dislikes Trump and likes the Democrats. How's that? N7 Wolf on Kick, thank you so much. Freedom Advocate, all the way from the UK. Thank you so much for being here. Well, today's my brother's birthday. Jesse, if you're listening, happy birthday. I sent you a message. I saw that you just read it. So, holy shit, you old bastard. 37? What an old man. Yeah, TL. It's daunting. Particularly the first volume of the Gulag Archipelago. Like, I sort of feel that way today in some senses. Don't get me wrong, we're not there. But the corruption was so huge that for someone to sit down and put pen to paper and explain it, like, there's a chapter where he literally is just going through their, like, code of laws and the punishment and how it was applied. And it's never ending, it seems. You can't believe it. You really can't. He calls them tenors. Like, when you're getting 10-year sentences in the Gulag. That's what they called them, tenors. And it's insane. It is insane how they had these laws and how they apply them. You would get, like, anti-Soviet agitation because your neighbor came to your house and you had a picture of Stalin up in the kitchen and it was askewed. And so your neighbor reported and said, see? The fact that painting was askewed proves that was their little protest against Stalin. 10 years. It sounds ridiculous, but it happened over and over and over again. When we look at corruption today, I forget, I could do a show. My next year of shows could be going back and watching my live streams and having all of these stories of corruption that I've completely forgotten about. Because there are so many that occur so fast, and they're sort of exponentially growing in magnitude. I barely touched, Enrique Tarrio was sentenced to 22 years today. The guy, I forget, there's so many of them, I forget his name. He got sentenced to 17 years the other day. Why? Well, they got terrorism enhancements for January 6th. Some of them weren't even there on January 6th, weren't accused of committing violence. 17 years, 22 years. Meanwhile, May 30th, 31st, 2020, when we had a bunch of lefties that were pulling on fences and throwing Molotov cocktails and injuring 47 Secret Service people and burning down a guard station in an attempt to break into the White House, who got 17 years out of that? In fact, I do believe I have been unable to find one person that received a charge for that insurrection. Yeah, Banana Slice. Yeah. That's the double standard that we're talking about. That's why it's so important to discuss. Because what happens is people could show this image. 4 officers committed suicide. Look at this image, January 6th. Look at this violence. There was things that were violent there. I'm not going to deny it. And so therefore it's justified. The 10 years is justified. The 17 years is justified. The 22 years is justified. But then you watch the riots on the left, and most of them are not only not being charged, they're getting settlements and things like that, many groups of them. What's this business? Oh? Let me check something here. Did my Discord channel just get nuked? Can anyone check and see if they can see my Discord channel? Hopefully it's working. I just got a weird message. Hopefully it's nothing. I don't know. I'm so technologically illiterate. I did see the story from Laura Loomer. I haven't been able to check. The problem is anytime you're dealing with a story that shows a picture or a video, I don't like to comment on it until I try to do a minimum of research because it's so easy to Photoshop someone in or to misidentify someone. If it's true that there were people from the Azov battalion or people that are fighting for Ukraine, that are Ukrainian soldiers that were there January 6th, and our federal government has known about it and let them go, that is a huge deal, right? Because it's not, in a sense. We could agree it's not. I don't think it necessarily is. Now, if they were there and they were colluding with government agencies or outside agencies in order to, attack the Capitol, that's one thing. But if they were just there and swept up in what happened, a riot, I don't think it's a big deal. But I don't think it was a ridiculous insurrection. But the left can't make that argument. The Democrats can't make that argument. They're saying it was an insurrection, the worst day since 9/11. So if there were foreign nationals fighting for a foreign nation that we're now supporting, that were participating in that insurrection, well, that would certainly be grounds for investigation. What do I think their end goal is? Their end goal is a neo-feudalism globalism. It's not just the left, it's sort of the establishment. That's what they want, a neo-feudalism in a globalist society, and they want people to be completely dependent on them. And much like the Bolsheviks, they want to be able to completely eliminate anyone that would challenge their authority. Yeah, I was talking about Enrique Tarrio a little. Still don't see this guy. Hopefully he just pops on to the channel, the Discord channel. I don't know. You watch Alex Jones every single day? Good for you. He's entertaining. Let me give you an example. I've been talking about how deep fake technology and AI technology and stuff like that will be able to muddy the waters even further in the future. And I was like, we're within a decade of... We're not even that. We're probably there now, where you could create something with AI or deepfake type technology to have a major politician have a video of them committing a crime or saying something really heinous, and the average person won't be able to decipher whether or not that's real or not. Let me give you an example of how that's playing out. So there's a video going around. I saw this video from DeSantis supporters spreading it, where it's Roger Stone on the phone when he figures out that he's not getting pardoned. And he's basically like, I'll go after Trump. I hope he gets impeached, blah, 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 blah. Now, if that's true, then it shows that Roger Stone, was willing to throw Trump under the bus, and maybe he believes Trump's a bad guy. But Roger Stone's defense is, look, that audio's not syncing up with the video, with how my lips are moving. Now, I haven't parsed it out, but Roger Stone, at least it appears what he's suggesting is, this is a fake. Someone put an audio track over my video, and it's being spread by conservatives. I don't know. That could be bullshit too. But how do you know unless you sift through it? Unless you really make an effort to do the best you can to look at this. And even then it's going to be difficult. But the average person that sees this stuff, they're not doing that. Here's an example that's not even that sophisticated. I kept seeing this weekend when I would briefly check Twitter. There was all this stuff about Burning Man. And there was this picture of a Jeep. It was like a white Jeep. And it was in this like crazy like clay type mud up above its wheel well. And it was like Burning Man, people try to escape. And then I saw the community notes. It was like, actually, this photo was from Instagram in 2019 or 2020, before Burning Man. But the average person just scrolling through sees that and they're like, wow. Now, that's because it goes to a narrative that is true. There's this really bad mud at Burning Man right now. And so you're reading about that, and then you see this image of a Jeep, and you're like, wow, it's really bad. But that Jeep image wasn't true. That wasn't an accurate depiction of what's going on there right now. Yeah, Bandit, that's what I'm saying, you know. So that's just, and that Jeep one, it's just sort of, that's old school, you know, bullshittery. Put a picture up and say, this was from here. You know, here's a picture of soldiers dying in Ukraine. Actually, that's from a conflict in Pakistan in 2013. But you see this video or you see this image. Now imagine the more sophisticated way of, with advanced AI technology and deepfake technology, that you're able to, I mean, who knows? And the thing is, as bad, as corrupt, and as inept as these people in our institutions are, and how untorrid they are and willing to lie. They're willing to dress up like Nazis to smear Glenn Youngkin, right? Remember that in the Virginia rally? So they're willing to do this stuff. You remember the support for January 6th rally? You know, where you had the feds that were blatantly there with their khaki shorts and their tight shirts, and you could see their gun. Like, they're willing to do that stuff. So why would they be unwilling to use this technology for nefarious reasons? When we have reason, and again, if you go watch one of my latest TikToks, it's not my fault that I don't believe these institutions. It's their fault. And millions of people are now distrusting of these institutions. For good reason, I think. At the exact same time where the technology is increasing to make these institutions be able, if they choose, to put out information that will be believable to anyone that wants to believe it. It's really a frightening thought what they'll be able to get away with. So I would say Ogre, I would say Aftershocks helped me with my channel more than anyone. Ogre's really helped me lately and will be helping me in the future. I've had a lot of other people that have helped me out in various ways. Aftershock, great guy. Set up this debate and everything, but here's the frustration. So I didn't know the debate was coming, and now I didn't talk to the guy. Aftershock did. Now I can't get in touch with Aftershock or the guy. So now I'm sitting here. The debate's supposed to start at 8 o'clock. I don't know. If you're watching, guy, I believe Tommy's your name, or My Doode, head to my Discord. Or we can meet at your Discord. I don't care. But I have no way. Yeah, I will, Ogre. I've just been really busy. Go fishing. I did a little fishing yesterday, the most minimum, like 10 minutes. But my son Hank got bored with it, and then we went swimming instead. So bushcraft helps all the time. Absolutely true. Invite Pisco and make him look more dumb. You could do that. He's probably still on vacation. Have you ever met a guy at vacation so much? Still in Australia. Shit, when I go on vacation, it's like 2 days. Also, I have this thing where anytime I take PTO at work, I end up working way more hours. There's Aftershock. What's up, man? Hank's really been into the movie Monsters, Inc. lately. He likes Billy Crystal's character, the little eyeball guy, Mike Wazowski. He likes him. He thinks he's funny. Which he is. It's funny. So we watched that. And he's funny. Once he's like, he finds something that he likes, and then he wants to stick with it. Just watch it over and over and over. And I'm like, hey man, they made one called Monsters University. Same characters, right? They're younger. No! Because he like memorizes parts that he likes. Hank is 2 and like 2/3 at this point. So his birthday is in January. He's January 9th. He'll be 3. So yeah, Monsters Inc.'s a great movie. It really is. Yeah. It's doing good, Conservative Carnage. We're just waiting. I think we're going to try to do a debate here. Now, I got to be honest. I shouldn't be doing this debate because I am so behind on paperwork and stuff. So I'm going to be up to the wee hours of the morning doing paperwork after this debate. And then I got trainings all day tomorrow. So tomorrow is my anniversary. 9 years. Me, my wife, and I. Next year, I'll be 40, and it'll be my 10th anniversary. So, big milestones. I can't believe she's put up with me for 9 years. She's done very well. She sends me out here to be annoying to all of you, and then you take that. Thank you, TL. Yeah, getting married, I recommend it highly. Best thing, getting married and having a son is the best things I've ever done. Not even close. I could look like a total ass tonight, get totally crushed, look like a buffoon, and I still have the greatest wife and son in the world. I am incredibly lucky. Do I like my work? I do. I like my work a lot. But it can be... What I always say in this field is I do home health care with people with developmental disabilities. 95% of the time I say, I can't believe I get paid to do this. And then 5% of the time I'm like, I can't believe this is all I get paid to do this. When things get rough, they can get really, really, really rough. I've been in situations at work that are amongst the most stressful situation that you could ever imagine. Where people you're supporting are in physical danger, people in the community are in physical danger, you're in physical danger, awkward situations with families, with law enforcement. It could get really, really bad. And when people are kind of talking to people that aren't in the field and encouraging them to join the field, I think sometimes they do a disservice by not being honest about how stressful it could get. It could get extremely stressful. It really can. You know, this is a job where you might get punched in the face. You can't punch back. You can't. You can't take things personally. If you do it, you're just, it's not going to work. It's just not. If I weren't married and F-Stroke put on a wig, would you marry him? I don't think so. We would argue too much about politics and stuff. I need someone that doesn't really care about that stuff. But yeah, you know, what is, you know, I think about this a lot. I'm religious, but in a bad way. Like I'm not a good Christian. I'm not. I don't go to church. I'm not reading the Bible a lot. I didn't pray a lot. I've started praying every night, and I feel like at first your gut reaction is to pray for things you need. But then I realized that's dumb. Who am I to pray for anything I need? Because my life is as good right now as it will ever be. If I win $1 billion tomorrow, it doesn't matter. My life right now, today, or yesterday when I'm hanging out with my wife and kid, that's peak. Our health's pretty good. My son's health's pretty good. You know, so I just, it's a weird feeling knowing that this is as good as my life's ever been. Ever. And I don't deserve it. I'm not a really good person or anything like that. And I'm one of the luckiest people that's ever lived. It's a really weird feeling. So I try to stay humble and, you know, I'm not giving anyone a lecture on, you know, what your religion should be. I don't do that. That's not my thing. But for me, I think that it's important to remind myself every night to be thankful and to pray for how thankful I am. Because, yeah, Khalil, that's probably true. My life likely would be ruined if I won that much. So, all right, let's see what's going on with this debate. Aftershock's messaging the guy. Guy from Smash Mouth died. It's a bummer. I remember, I think I was in 7th or 8th grade when that song, Walking on the Sun, came out. It's huge in my school. You heard it everywhere. I don't think that was their biggest song, though. I would say that All-Star song was their biggest song. Or was that the one that was in Shrek? I don't know. Well, I'm stalling, waiting for the debate to start. Let's see. Sometimes these things happen where maybe he met 8 p.m. Central Time. Bunch of wrestlers died. Bray Wyatt died. Terry Funk. I haven't watched newer wrestling, so I've never even seen a Bray Wyatt match, but I know who he was. Yeah, I hear you, Aftershock. Not your fault at all, I know. I believe you, man. So, we're just waiting. We'll try to get this debate rolling. Has anyone got anything they want to argue with me about while we're waiting? We could do that. Arguing always kills time. Yeah, ska. I like ska. I had a friend that was quite the trumpet player. I played trumpet as well. I played French horn in high school, but I didn't take it seriously. Like, I was okay. But my friend was really good, and he went off to college to play trumpet. And now he's a band director, maybe even a principal. I think maybe he's moved on to principal. What class am I playing at Baldur's Gate? So I haven't played it for weeks now, but I was a paladin because I don't really know the D&D rules that well. It seemed like a simpler class to play. So, but I don't get much time to play, to be honest. Don't think Obama had gay fantasies about Joe Biden. Why or why not? I don't know. You know, I saw Tucker's interviewing. I assume that's Larry Sinclair that he's interviewing. Of course, this was a story that was out during the Obama presidency. To me, the story's not about Obama. It's about the lack of curiosity of media coverage and how the media just sort of covered up all scandals or faults and things. I am a huge Seinfeld fan. Probably top 3 favorite show that I've ever seen. Love Seinfeld. Let's see. Am I missing a message or something? No. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll give her to about 8:30, and then I'll either just do my own stream or we will, wrap her up or something like that. So this debate was supposed to start at 8 o'clock. I still have been unable to have any communication with the person that I'm supposed to be debating. So Aftershock's trying to get in touch with him now. Aftershock's the one that was communicating with him, so hopefully he'll get some sort of response. Things happen. It could be a life situation, car broke down, kid sick, something like that. So, I'm not terribly upset or anything like that. But yeah, that's, it's funny. They look back, I had this guy that I was debating last week that was not really a debate. And he was trying to make this argument. It was okay for Joe Biden to do the quid pro quo because he didn't have the final authorization. It was Obama. Am I on top messages or all messages? I think all messages pop up is the way it's set. What you see on the right there is through Restream. I don't know if it has a top messages or that's what I see. I'm not on the YouTube page, so I don't think that's an option on Restream, so I see all the messages. And it's one nice thing about not having 1,000 people watching, because then the messages fly by so fast it's hard to keep up with them. Now I have 50 people watching, it's no big deal. I can see almost all the messages. Still checking here. Because I gotta be honest, if this debate would not have been set up, I would not have streamed tonight. That's how busy I am. I try my best to always meet my obligations. I don't want to be in a situation where I promise someone my time and then I have to back out. I think that's really bad form. I'm not saying it's never happened. It has. But I try to make that exceedingly rare because I understand that if someone agrees to debate me, that now it's not just my time, but it's their time that they've set aside. And so I don't like to put them in the position where I have to cancel or back out or reschedule or something like that. Sometimes it's inevitable. So I was like, okay, if the guy was ready to debate me tonight, then let's do it. Even though I didn't have time. I didn't even have my computer hooked up. So I literally hooked it up 10 minutes before I was came on live. So hopefully he shows up. But if not, oh well, I guess. Maybe we could chum someone else in. Looks like people are on Wix. What do we got going on there? Go yell at Wick and his crew. That's always fun. Yeah, same token with debate, but we agree on everything. I'm a good debater, but I also happen to be right on the right side of almost every issue, so that makes it easy. You don't have to be that good. Aftershock, if you're listening, just give me an update. Have you messaged him? He hasn't got back to you, or I'll message him. Did you see the video with Fauci about masks? Where he's like, oh, this new study. It was on CNN. I think it was Smear Kanish. And he's like, actually, the authors conclude in this new study that they didn't even see a difference with N95 masks. Well, not at the epidemic level, but on the individual level. Horseshit. That's not how studies work. But Biden's backing a mask because... Now remember, the mask, of course, people get this right. It was about control, of course. But you understand that the mask is also the linchpin to the lockdown, right? Because the left argument, when they violated lockdowns, they violated the orders, right? Constantly, they were, oh, we're out marching with Black Lives Matter. Oh, we're out marching against Trump or whatever. You couldn't be at Sturgis. You couldn't go to a Trump rally, but you could do that stuff. You can go out and you remember all the doctors said, COVID's bad, so bad that you can't see your family, so bad you can't go to work. But you know what's worse? Racism. So go ahead. And then when I debated people like Dylan Burns and stuff, what'd they say? But we had masks on, so it was okay. It was okay. We could do what we want. We had masks on. So it didn't matter if we locked down. So if the mask didn't do shit, now what? We have a crazed murderer from south of the border wandering around the state. I don't know. I didn't hear that. I will say this. Another thing to keep in your prayers if you would like to do so. I went to a high school, right? I've lived in the same 20-mile radius my whole life. I played football in high school. There is a high school around here I didn't go to, but I played every year named Carn City. One of their players this weekend, it made national news. I believe he was a quarterback. Scored on a play, then there was an extra point. He came off the field for the extra point and then went back on the field. I don't think he was hit or anything like that. And for the kickoff, the ref noticed that he was looking a little woozy and asked if he was all right, and the kid said no and collapsed. And I think he has a brain bleed and a collapsed lung, and they're not sure if he's going to make it. It's a really big deal around here. It's really a terrible situation. So, when's this guy coming on? He's supposed to be on at 8. So he's already late, but maybe there was a miscommunication. Like I said, I didn't know I was doing this debate until 5:30 today, so maybe he's intentionally stringing me along. Maybe it was a miscommunication. Maybe he had an emergency come up. I have no idea. But we'll stick around till at least 8:30 and see what we can do. Wow, that's crazy. That's a crazy story. Yeah, maybe it was a Central Time thing, though. Aftershock said that he specified Eastern Time. Again, I've never talked to this guy. I didn't have any communication. Aftershock reached out to him. And he was communicating with Aftershock, so... Yeah, I saw that, Achilles. I mean, what does it matter at this point? I mean... It's not just a Democrat thing. It's Mitch McConnell, too. He's perfectly fine. John Fetterman's fine. I mean, doesn't this illustrate what I've said for years? Which is, these people are just figuring. They're not running anything. It's these people behind the scenes. They're running the show. I don't even know if disrespect's the word. Is it disrespect, or is it just a doddering old man that doesn't know what he's doing? Can you blame someone for disrespect if they have dementia and don't know where they're at? I don't know. But they can't admit that. So then, okay, well then it's disrespect. Well, no. It's not disrespect. But that's the truth. Bureaucratic people that have been there since the Obama administration. Your Susan Rices, your Victoria Newlands, your Ron Klains. So Benny made of it. Who's Benny? I don't know who that is. All right. So I apologize to my audience. We're still waiting. The debate was supposed to begin at 8 p.m. Been unable to reach the person that I was going to debate. So again, I'm not going to jump to conclusions that it's someone that got afraid and is running. Literally could be an emergency came up. The truth is, even people I disagree with massively politically, even people I think that are bad faith, everyone has a life. Anything could happen. You could get sick. You can have car trouble. You can have an emergency at your neighbor's house, you know. So I'm not jumping to conclusions. We'll see. It's sort of the fool me once, shame on you. And then after that, I've had people where constantly no showing or constantly late. At that point, you just wash your hands of them and you say, I'm not going to deal with it because I take time out of my day. But one time, obviously, anything can happen. So I'm not going to hold that against them. What I think Russia hasn't tried to assassinate Victoria Nuland seems like she's a key figure in the U.S. regime's agenda abroad. I don't even think it's bigger than a specific person. The agenda is the agenda. So even if Nuland wasn't there, it wouldn't matter. And I think that, they're not focused. I think they would think if they attack an individual like that it would lead to mass retaliation. It wouldn't really do. What's the upside to it? And part of me thinks that it's a mutual game that these people are playing anyways. You don't want to assassinate Nuland because then they'll assassinate Putin, and things like that. So we'll give it a couple more minutes. I do have something that I could talk about. I could talk about a little Ron DeSantis versus Trump business. We could do that if you want. I was kind of chirping at some folks online about that, so we could do that. Do I think we'll ever enter full-blown lockdowns again? I do. I don't know that it'll be anytime soon. They definitely would if they could. If they knew they could get away with it, they would. It helps them control elections. It helps them control people. That's what they want. The managed decline of individualism. That's what they want. And lockdowns are a great way to do that. So, will they be able to get away with it now, or will enough people just say, no, effing wait? I don't know. They're going to try, though. But certainly they will in the future. Yeah, I talked about the Proud Boy sentences a little earlier. We were talking about in context of the Gulag Archipelago. It's cliche, but people, I've said it many times. Other people have said it. Trump and the system coming at him. So let's start with this, right? I'll do a little show here. We'll talk some stuff. If the debater hops on, then we'll transition to the debate. How's that sound? But I'm not gonna aftershock or just let me know if you hear from them and they can come on. But I'm not gonna keep going back and checking my messages and checking the Discord. I can't do that. It'll just yeah, bushcraft. They're rewriting history, of course. The United States is doing the same thing. So So here's the deal with Trump. Trump accomplished something that I'll never be able to accomplish. You could say, well, it's because he was born wealthy. Maybe, whatever. Whatever the circumstances were, Trump accomplished something that was nigh on impossible. I didn't believe it was possible. I thought in 2016 that there was no chance that he would win. None. I remember staying up election night. I was shocked. I was happy, but I was shocked that he had a chance to win. He's the first candidate that made it through a primary in one of the major parties that I actually supported. I didn't give a shit about Mitt Romney. I didn't give a shit about John McCain. Didn't care about George Bush. Certainly didn't like any of the Democrats. I liked Ron Paul, but they screwed him over before the primary, so he never had a chance. It felt good to have someone that I actually supported that won. I had said from the get-go that I wanted him to win because I knew that his mere election would expose the corruption in our system, which it did, and then I hoped that he would do something about it, which he didn't, which is bad. But all of the criticisms I have of Trump come from the place of understanding that he achieved something that I will never be able to even achieve a fraction of. He, through whatever reason you want to say, luck, talent, skill, wealth, whatever, was able to mobilize people into a movement that propelled him to the presidency against all odds. Probably the biggest political upset in the history of this country. So understand, I'm not sitting here from a point of, I'm so much better than Trump. That's not what I'm saying. For that time, for what he did, no one could take that away from him. Now, you might say, I think he was a plant. Maybe. I don't. But just to give you an idea. Having said that, all of the opposition that was stacked against Trump, the corruption in the intel agencies, the DOJ, the State Department, the IRS, the EPA, the mainstream media, people in his own party that hated him, that wanted out, leadership in his own party that hated him, that worked against him, unprecedented leaks, sabotaged by the very people that he appointed. He had some amount of control over that, though. He appointed those people. Some of them were obviously bad. Some of them obviously came from the swamp, like Bill Barr or John Bolton. It's obvious. He may have had his reasons, but it was obvious to me. I was calling it out. Again, not saying I'm better than Trump, just laying out the facts. He made poor decisions when it came to things like endorsing lockdowns. Acting like vaccines were the end-all be-all and pumping them to no end. All of these things, that's at his feet. He chose not to pardon people he should, like Julian Assange. He chose not to release unredacted the evidence of the coup against him. That was his choice. And instead he chose to pardon a bunch of people that Democrats wanted him to pardon. His choice. He now reaps the consequences of that. He will be attacked the rest of his life. And it sucks. It does. But one, he was in a position to maybe do something about it. Doesn't mean it's fair. Doesn't mean, oh, well, he's getting what he deserves. That's not what I'm saying. And second, because of his position and how wealthy he is and how public he is and because he has massive support, that operates as some level of defense to him. That doesn't work for the blue-haired grandma on January 6th. It doesn't work for the people that are getting raided every day. That doesn't work for the people that sat in pretrial detention for years and years in deplorable conditions. That are getting years in jail and probation for not even being accused of violence. They don't have any of that. They were never in a position to where they could have defended themselves. They were never in a position where they had millions of people to speak up for them or billions of dollars to provide some sort of defense. They never had that. And those people have been being taken down incrementally for years now. And it's getting worse. They need the January 6th narrative as the linchpin for their authoritarianism. They need it. Let them rot, says Poker Mad. You think Poker Mad said that about the people May 30th, 2020? That lit a guard station on fire in an attempt to get into the White House to remove Donald Trump? Do you think he said that? Do you think he's upset that those people were left off the hook? That there was no massive FBI manhunt? That their pictures weren't being broadcast everywhere? You think? Right. Nope. At least you're honest. That's who the left truly is. They want to be able to engage in violence, intimidation. The standards shouldn't apply to them by any means necessary. That's how they feel. They should be allowed to punch you in the mouth. Nothing should happen to them. If you defend yourself, you should go to prison. That's what they believe. You see it all through the cities they control. Bodega owner, someone comes in, armed criminal, tries to rob you. You shoot back, you go to jail. So when I see these stories of these lengthy sentences for things that aren't even considered violent, you know, the guy that got 17 years, one of the things they said, he was shaking a fence. 17 years. Shaking a fence. Oh boy. Care to go back May 30th, 2020 and see the fence shaking that was going on as they were attacking police, the lefties? Yeah. Enrique Tarrio got 22 years. Still periodically checking here just to make sure I didn't get a message. Don't believe I have. So we will continue. I don't know. What crime? Insurrection-y stuff? I don't know. That's why the January 6th committee had to delete footage. That's why they didn't want to hear from Captain Stephen Sund, who said that he thought it was a setup that explained how terrible the FBI was there. They can't cover any of that. It's the same with election discrepancies. They can't look at the chain of custody issues in places like Georgia with ballots. Does that prove that the election was stolen? Of course not. The reason they're censoring you is not because they're worried that you're wrong. It's because they're worried that you're right. And the whole narrative collapses. All of the justification for their authoritarianism collapses if it turns out that the underlying facts aren't as they are being told. So they have to double down. They have to just keep doubling down. January 6th was an insurrection. Everyone connected to it needs to go to prison for decades. They have to do that. Doesn't matter if they engage in violence. You could see the obvious discrepancy. You see the left-wing riots that occurred. Doesn't matter. They're fine with that. You can see the discrepancies with the Trump indictments. Doesn't matter. Yeah, we talked about that a little, Robert Whaley, as well. I don't know if you could trust images that you see and things like that. Before I really delve into, before I talk about it, I'd like to delve in and see what I could do. Yeah, I don't disagree, Banana Slims. So, one of the things that's occurring is that there's this big battle that I've stayed out of largely, that you see particularly on X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, but also commentators that are journalists or pundits, between DeSantis people and Trump people. Now, let's be clear. As much as I like, a lot of the things Vivek are saying, he's not really in a position where he'll be able to win unless something happens to Trump. He's not going to win. Vivek's too new, and he's too similar in rhetoric to Trump, that the people that like Vivek are going to stick with Trump. Maybe he's a Fed plant. We could talk about that some other day. Christie and Haley and all them, they don't have a chance. They're, at this point. It's DeSantis or Trump. Unless something happens. But as it stands right now, those are your two front runners. And it looks increasingly like Trump, but still ways away. Anything could happen. So you have these two factions going back and forth. Now let me be clear. I don't have a problem with it. I think a primary is good. I think they should fight it out. I don't think someone should be ordained. And I certainly had a lot of problems with Trump. My gut feeling going into election season was I preferred DeSantis. Now I'm not so sure. For reasons we'll talk about. But people that are like pundits or commentators that are defending Trump and that are defending DeSantis are really going back and forth at each other. They really are. And I think that both have reasons to, and both can come off as petty and crappy? Well, that's the question. What does a post-Trump GOP look like? Yeah, that was a bad look, Air Shots, when he had to look to Vivek. Doesn't look like someone ready to be a leader. Now, I've done this before, but I want to give the pros and cons of Trump and DeSantis. I'm a single-issue voter, basically. That issue is corruption. I happen to be a small government, fiscally conservative person. But the big issue for me is corruption. That's why I would vote for someone like a Tulsi Gabbard, who is at least paying lip service to outing corruption, over a Mitt Romney, who might pay lip service to being a fiscal conservative, but I know he's just going to push establishment politics. So that issue trumps all other issues. Now, if it was up to me, would I rather have someone who's coming at an anti-establishment bent, a populist bent from a right-wing position? Of course, I would support that person over someone coming at it from a left-wing position. But if I had to choose, I would choose the populist. I would choose the anti-corruption person. As such, I will be casting my vote for the person I think has the best shot to win and do something meaningful against the corruption. I don't know who that is yet. The person talking the best game is Vivek. He doesn't really have a shot to win. So I'm not going to look at him for today. So if I'm going today to vote in the primary, who am I voting for? DeSantis or Trump? Well, here's how I'm measuring their pros and cons. Trump. The con of Trump is he had 4 years, and what did he meaningfully do about the corruption? He appointed John Bolton. He appointed Bill Barr. He pardoned a bunch of people Democrats wanted. He didn't pardon Assange. He didn't release things unredacted. He didn't show to the American people files showing the corruption of the FBI. He didn't do any of that. And a bunch of other stuff that was negative. Endorsing lockdowns, even if it was temporary. Upside of Trump. Yeah, bonanza. The upside of Trump would be, now he's pissed. Now he sees how deep the corruption is. Now he's going to come back with a vengeance. And listen, I'm so bereft of candidates that are good that I'll take a candidate that would do the right thing for the wrong reason. Would it be the best reason in the world for Trump to go after people because he's vengeful? No, I would prefer someone who's looking at the Constitution and sort of looking at the history of authoritarianism and corruption and saying this is why we need to stop this. But that's not Trump. And I'll take vengeance as a reason to get to where we're going. That's fine. If he says, I'm going to take down the FBI because they're corrupt and came after me, good enough for me. That's fine. Fine by me. So that's a persuasive argument. Now that they're indicting him over and over and he's looking at spending the rest of his life in jail, now he'll be pissed. Now he'll say it's time to go after them. Maybe. So that's Trump's upside. What's DeSantis' upside? DeSantis talks very similarly to Trump in dealing with corruption. Not the same, not as bombastic, but he's in the same vein. But the difference is DeSantis has actually done policies in his state of Florida as governor that seem to be more effective than policies Trump did nationally. He's fired corrupt prosecutors. He's done things like trying to get sexualization of children and CRT out of schools. That's good. The downside of DeSantis is he has increasingly become more moderate as he's campaigned. And it is evident to me that he is being steered into the direction of the establishment Republicans saying that he will be the post-Trump Republican Party. In other words, your old Mitt Romney types, the people that would vote for him, the donors, the RNC type people, they don't like Trump. But they also realize that Trump's momentum is where the party's at. They're not going to be able to have any significant wins without Trump-type voters. So they need a candidate that's more palpable than Trump, that they could work with that could still pick up Trump voters. That's what they need. So then the question becomes, will Ron DeSantis be someone that'll placate to those people to win a primary and to win a general election and then say, kiss my ass, I'm going to be the populist that I always was when he's in office? Probably not. Probably not. He'll probably give in. He'll probably say, okay, I got to work with them and, we can't, That's his downside. Establishment people prefer him and seem to have their tentacles in the way that he's campaigning. So he has to try to run this campaign where he's like, yeah, I'm sort of MAGA, but also he goes too far. I need to let the old guard know. Oh, no, I'm not crazy. We're not going to upset the apple cart. We'll just shake it a little. So again, go back to my metric. Who has the chance to win and then do something meaningful against the corruption? My guess is DeSantis has a better shot to win the general. Now, the caveat to that is you have to win the primary to win the general. And if he can't win the primary, then he has no shot to win the general. But I'm saying if I could magically point and say this person's the winner of the primary, I think DeSantis has a better shot than Trump. But it's not guaranteed because there's an awful lot of Trump voters that aren't going to vote for anyone other than Trump. Because of one, enthusiasm, because people just say, fuck it, I don't care. They screwed Trump over, I'm not going to go out. And second, because they'll blame DeSantis as attacking Trump, rightfully or wrongfully. Now, I haven't got into that, but Trump and DeSantis have, through their surrogates and themselves somewhat, Trump more than DeSantis, attacked each other. I'm okay with that. There's ways that the attacks occur that I think are stupid, but... What's up, Blue Logic? How you doing? Thank you. I'm going to be putting more shorts out there, yeah. I'm supposed to be doing a debate, but person no-showed, so still waiting. Originally, it was scheduled for 9 o'clock. Maybe they'll pop on at 9, so... So that's where we're at. So DeSantis, I would say, has a slightly better shot. By the way, I disagree with that. I'll be crystal clear here. If DeSantis or Trump or Vivek wins the primary, absolutely I'm supporting them, doing everything I can to get them elected in the general. Even though I think that there's a very little shot that any of them will win. I think that the institutional corruption is so bad with the shaping of the message in our mainstream media, the lawfare that's being employed, the control of social media, most social media platforms, the intel agencies, going out and conducting basically spying operations against candidates that they don't like, ballot harvesting that Republicans still haven't caught up even close to. I don't think that any of them have a big shot of winning. But I'll still fight like hell. I'll do my part, try my best to get them over the finish line. I don't give a shit if it's Chris Christie. I will not vote for Chris Christie. Don't give a shit. Wouldn't care at all between Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom and Chris Christie. Wouldn't care. It's not going to be him, but that's how I would feel on that. So, make no mistake. You got his times mixed up. So he's starting his live stream shortly. Well, shit, did he think I meant 8 Pacific Standard Time? Because that's what? Like 11? I can't stay up that late, man. If he wants to jump on here at like 9 p.m. or a little after that, I'm game, but I can't be up that late. We'll see. We'll get her worked out. Anywho. What was I saying? Talk about Trump versus DeSantis. So I'd support any of those. So, and but I understand. So it's dumb for me, particularly like if you're someone's like they screwed over Trump. Trump's best shot is for, a DeSantis type or a Vivek type to win, if not him, to protect himself. So if your goal primarily is protecting Trump, which that isn't my goal primarily, but if that's your goal, I think you'd be dumb to be like, well, I'm not going to vote then if it's not Trump. But let's not act like there aren't never Trumpers that are the same way. There are plenty of DeSantis voters that are like, oh, no. If it's not DeSantis, if it's Trump, I'm not voting for him. And that's fine. Enjoy Biden then. Enjoy Newsom. That's okay. So there's a lot of that infighting, and we'll see what happens with that. Which also decreases the chance of whoever wins the primary being able to win. We'll see if there's an attempt to coalesce, if it's Trump, if DeSantis tries to coalesce his supporters, or vice versa, but it is what it is. One of the things, though, I've been asking, so the two knocks I have recently on Trump and DeSantis is, I think from the interview of Tucker Carlson with Trump, I don't think he gets it. I think that he's talking, oh yeah, Newsom's a good guy, I've worked with Newsom, and people at the CIA that I've worked with, and blah, 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 blah. He wants to build a new FBI building. He doesn't get it. He still doesn't get it. He looks at it like a game. He looks at it like, oh, they're not really out to get me, it's just politics. The election season will come and go, and then it'll be end. No. They're coming after Trump as a symbol that no one could challenge them. That's what they're doing. He doesn't get it. He does not. Peer review wants to know, how should the POTUS be held accountable? If the FBI disbanded, who would gather opposition research on candidates they don't like? I don't know. I guess the candidates themselves. Peer review. I know that people like you probably are cool with the corruption at the FBI and spying on the president and things like that. I'm not. I had to listen to people in Democratic circles tell me for 4 years that Russia collusion was the biggest deal. It was an attack on our democracy. Now when we have the FBI putting their thumb on the scale, colluding with the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton's team, and the mainstream media to do so, now all of a sudden we get the vapors, well, what would we do without the FBI? Vivek has a good plan. Vivek's plan is to take the majority of those agents that are on-field agents and to put them into state departments and other departments where they'd be able, and then give the authority and the funding to those departments where it will be more decentralized to be able to do investigations and things like that. I don't think that we should have the most corrupt institution, powerful institution in this country that is putting their thumb on the scale continue to do so, because now all of a sudden Democrats that don't give a shit about open borders, fentanyl, sex trafficking, and things like that, they don't give a shit about it now. They're not clamoring for the release of the Epstein files and all that stuff. But now all of a sudden they'll feign, but wait a minute, who will do all those investigations if they're not there? Don't give a shit. On that note, with DeSantis, what's DeSantis' plan to deal with the corruption? What's his plan? Fire some people? And then someone was like, no, that's not it. And they sent me a link, and it was like, fire some people, and then move the FBI field offices to other areas. So instead of just D.C., like Minnesota and Texas, we'll have FBI offices there. Detroit. It's not going to do it. That's nothing. Until the FBI is disbanded and the people that engaged in criminal behavior there face trial, nothing changes. Nothing. And if you're in the FBI and you think, but my job's important and I didn't engage in any corruption and I'm dealing with day-to-day things like drug dealers and international criminals and stuff like that, then you should have spoke up. Sorry. There weren't enough whistleblowers. And I understand that you'd be retaliated against. I totally get it. But you have to understand our perspective too. We can't allow this agency to exist that literally is engaged in coups against duly elected presidents. You can't do it. Mm-hmm. But when you say this, well, there you go. Loyal Logic doesn't want the FBI disbanded. Then you don't want anything done. There you have it. I like Loyal Logic, but that's That's how you know that we are so far away from winning. Because what Loyal Logic just said right there. And I was just about to bring it up. DeSantis supporter after DeSantis supporter. Like, literally, they'd be like, Chris Wray got fired. We did it. We solved everything. The Democrats are using the FBI to lock up people like us. To lock them up for decades. To censor people. And our side's content with, well, we don't want to disband them. Let's fire one or two people, and then we'll take these people that we think are corrupt and out to get us, and we'll put them in a different office. Then they won't be corrupt, because now they're in Detroit. They're not in D.C. now. Now they're in Detroit. More secure system. Define that. How are you going to do that? I know. Here's what we'll do. We'll have an IG discuss how corrupt they are and how they've been, say, abusing the FISA system. And then we'll say, you need to change that. And the FBI will go, yeah, we changed it. We did. Now it's more secure. Durham said in his report, who, by the way, that report was designed to prevent criminal investigations from the actual criminal people, but just enough to expose how corrupt it all is. He said he didn't even bother to make recommendations on specific changes because the culture is so bad that any specific recommendations would be worthless. There you go. And that's, and logic. I'm glad you're here. This is the exact argument I had with people. But you can't disband the FBI. That's a loss. It's a waste of time. We have to leave this agency that targets people on our side to ruin their lives and to steal elections. We have to leave them exist. You can't get rid of them. There you have it. And that's how I know DeSantis isn't going to do anything if he wins. He's not going to do anything. Because some of his biggest supporters, and I don't know that Loyal Logic's supporting DeSantis, but some of his biggest support, it's not, I would buy them if they were like, look, DeSantis really wants to get rid of the FBI, but he can't say it because that would hurt him in a primary or a general. That's an argument I would listen to. But when you listen to them defend, well, you can't get, that's all pie in the sky. You can't get rid of the FBI. You can't do that. It'll always be there and it'll always exist. So the best we could do is move some things around, move some people around. That's the best we could do. Okay, nothing changes then. Maybe DeSantis is there for 4 years and the FBI mines their P's and Q's those 4 years, and then a Democrat takes over and it's right back to where we are. Same thing. Exact same thing. That's how you know we're nowhere. We have not, believe it or not, folks, we aren't even close to rock bottom. We're not even close. Not close at all. Because people that are good people, like Loyal Logic, will continue to defend the existence of an agency that is designed to target people like him and ruin their lives. And he'll defend it. He'll defend the existence of it. We can't get rid of it. Imagine that. The Democrats talk about that. They're like, we're going to expand the court. Fuck it, get rid of the Electoral College. We don't give a fuck. We have prosecutors that will blatantly go after right-wing people and then leave left-wing people off the hook. That's what we have. And our side has, well, you can't get rid of the FBI. You can't do that. What percent? Right. It does, let's say, well, it's clear that's what their leadership does. It's clear. And you see, and he's just making the Democratic talking point right now. That's what Loyal Logic's doing. We can't get rid of them. Look, they had a drug bust one time in Texas. They did. They had a drug bust there. Those were good agents there. Remember when they used to go after serial killers back in the day? So you can't get rid of them. You can't do that. Nope, sorry. You got to take the good with the bad. We couldn't have other agencies that could deal with things like drugs and sex trafficking, which the FBI does poorly anyways. Couldn't do that. So instead, we have to take the good with the bad. The bad happens to be that the singular purpose of the leadership of this group of people is to literally destroy any group that they see as antithetical to their power, which is us. We have to accept that. They have to stay here. As long as that mentality persists from good people, what do you think the chances are that DeSantis is actually going to do something? Nothing. Because people like Loyal Logic, the first thing he does, he fires Christopher Wray. Finally, results. We got it now. Now we're rolling. I responded because someone said they had a lengthy post, and it was a woman who works for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, who I thought was very good at covering Trump, and she was very good. I forget her name. It starts with a J. And she was accurately predicting that Trump would be far more successful in 2016 than most people, because she's driving through rural Pennsylvania, and she sees all these Trump signs. And I've talked about it on here. The enthusiasm for Trump was wild. I don't see it. Not just for Trump. I don't see it for anything. And what this author said was, people are just tired. I completely concur. Completely concur. People are just over it. They're demoralized. The COVID shit, the indictment, they just don't give a shit. They're just like, I just want to be left alone. I don't give a shit. And that's the real black pill. They don't give a shit. And can you blame them? The lesson learned, and I've said this over and over again, the difficult question that we have to ask ourselves are, would we have been better had Hillary won 2016? How can that be? Didn't you support Trump? Of course. But had Hillary won, we wouldn't have as weaponized as an FBI. They wouldn't need to. What happened was, they were desperate. Trump won. They were desperate. They could be outed. They could lose their power. All hands on deck. By any means necessary. Take him down. Spy on him. We don't give a shit. Lock up his supporters. Allow the left to violently riot. Don't do shit to them. Pretend it's not happening. Lock down large swaths of the country. Tell them that the right wing has to lock down, but the left wing can still go out and riot. That's okay. Now, I understand what you're saying, Loyal Logic, that you would be up for it if you hear a serious plan. I told you that Vivek had a serious plan where he said he would take the money that was sent here, the specific agents, and send some to the U.S. Marshal Service, increase their funding and things like that. I don't need a specific plan to know, if someone's holding a gun to my head and I say, I'd like that person to not be holding a gun to my head anymore, that cop to be holding a gun, I wouldn't wait for someone to be like, but wait, I need a specific plan who will take that guy's place before we say that he should no longer be there holding a gun to your head. If Hillary won, we'd probably never have been wearing masks. That's the truth. They wouldn't have needed the crisis. So what happened was, it's all hands on deck for the FBI and all these other corrupt institutions. And it's getting outed. The American people could see it. And then something amazing happened. Nothing. James Comey's selling books. Brennan's on a correspondent at CNN. Former intel agencies are just blatantly bullshitting. Sounds like Russian disinformation, that Hunter Biden laptop. They're telling social media companies to censor conservatives. Left and right. Nothing happened. Now, they don't have to hide it. They don't have to hide it at all. People are so demoralized that, they don't give a shit. I'm tired of hearing of Trump. So am I. Trump says a lot of stuff that I think's dumb shit. Hell, I didn't think he sounded that great in that Tucker interview. But the reason I'm hearing about Trump over and over, what I'm tired of, constant indictments, constant smearing of him, constant bullshitting, he's an insurrectionist. That's what people are tired of. It's just overload, and it's working. It's absolutely working. What's up? JoJo's my brother. It's his birthday today. Thank you so much for being here, man. Happy birthday. I was supposed to be doing a debate at 8 o'clock. Apparently the guy thought it was 8 p.m. Pacific time. So maybe he'll be hopping on here soon. But I can't stay on all night. So we'll have to get word here around 9 o'clock what's going on. But I'm not going to, But happy birthday, man. There's a peer review. How much peer review have you not heard me talk about this? No, Comey didn't torpedo her candidacy intentionally. Comey was trying to protect her. The only reason that Comey had to come out and announce that the investigation was starting up was because Comey and company were protecting her from the get-go, which is exactly what the whole investigation was, as we could go through point by point if you want. Then a whistleblower in the FBI repeatedly reached out to Comey and top brass at the FBI, claiming that on Anthony Weiner's laptops was a bunch of emails from Hillary that they were covering up and weren't looking at. When he was not getting a response, he went outside the FBI to the Southern District of New York. The Southern District of New York then called James Comey. Now, James Comey admitted in his book that he assumed Hillary Clinton had the election in the bag. And he was upset because he thought if it came out after the election that the FBI sat on this evidence of potential criminality and said that the case was closed and sat on that evidence, that she would be impeached or she would be massively attacked from the other side in her first term in office. And so he decided, because of this whistleblower forced his hand, that he was forced to then come out and say, wait a minute, we found new emails, we're going to reopen the case and look into it. Then somehow the same FBI that's only able to go through about 100 emails for Freedom of Information Act requests a day, somehow we're able to go through hundreds of thousands of emails a day in about 3 or 4 days and say nothing to see here and closed the case. You heard me, but you just don't agree. Well, that's what the Inspector General reports had happen. That's what Comey said happened. But I guess you know better than them? What's your theory? James Comey was secretly in the bag for Trump. That's your theory. I heard the facts. I just choose to ignore them because they don't fit with my preconceived notion. And then later, me, like every other lefty, will say, Rob's a conspiracy theorist. Aftershock, have you had any word, by the way, from this guy? Is he going to hop on soon, or what's the deal? Because I really have a lot of work to do tonight. I can't, I kind of set aside 2 hours for the debate. We're already an hour in. If he can't start until 10 or something, and then we're going to go 2 hours or more, that puts me to midnight, and I don't know when I'm going to get this work done that I need to get done. He's going live at the top. Yeah, I saw that, but what does that mean? Does live at the top of the hour mean he's debating at the top of the hour? Or does that mean he's going to do his show for 2 hours and then expect to debate at 8 Pacific time? All right, I'm going to go to the restroom real quick. Let's see if I can find you a video to play. I don't know how the quality will be on this, but they don't. It was in the car, so it'll probably suck, but it's 10 minutes, so hopefully that gets me through my restroom break here. Oh, come on. Hey, what's up, everyone? Just thought I'd do a little video here. We're at the big Memorial Day today. It's January 6th. And so I think it's really important to look back in the coup that this country experienced. And a lot of people need to remember just how serious and somber that coup was. And of course, what I'm talking about is the coup that's fresh in everyone's mind of the FBI and the rest of the establishment that spent 4 years, if not longer, trying to sabotage President Trump and are continuing to do so today. And not just the president, but more importantly, everyday average Americans. We have a government that does not represent us. Even people, as you could see with this speaker fight at the top positions of the Republican Party, they don't care. They don't care about us. And they use corruption, intimidation, with all of these other institutions, such as the media, academia, the entertainment industry, the FBI. All of these institutions and engaged in corruption. We're seeing through the Twitter files, which I covered on my live stream last night. We saw with Russiagate, doing things like using unverified opposition research sourced by alleged Russian spies to allege they needed to spy on Trump because he was working with Russian spies, things like that. But if you're talking about, well, those were bloodless coups, maybe, but they were actually more impactful than a bunch of people on January 6th rioting. What did that accomplish? The coup against Trump, led by some of the most powerful people in the world in these institutions, such as people at the FBI and media, etc., that actually did a great job of influencing public perception that Trump might be a Russian asset, and it helped stymie him, and it could have affected the 2018 and the 2020 election. What did January 6th do? Did it hamper the Biden administration? No, not at all. In fact, Democrats still use that as a seminal moment to justify their authoritarianism. They're still doing it. They're using it to justify locking up people that they oppose. They use it to justify working in collusion with social media companies to censor people that wanted to talk about things that were critical of the Democratic Party. If anything, the riot on January 6th was a boon to the Democrats. But of course, they have to blow it out of proportion and fake tears. And you hear reports today.
Forget about that shit.
All the officers that died there. No officers died on January 6th. The only person that...
All right, I think we might be ready to go, so you're going to lose me visually here. Someone comment on the YouTube video that the debate starts at 1 hour and 40 minutes in. But that is the first comment. Then I won't have to go back and timestamp it. So, anyways, let's get this done.
Yo, Rob.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he's in the waiting room. Just really quickly before you pull him in, do you know how to server mute or no? Because I'm not sure if you're muting and then like you can't hear them too.
What are you talking about?
So when you right click on somebody, it lets you mute and it lets you server mute.
Right.
So when you mute someone, hypothetically like last time, you want to server mute them.
Okay. It shouldn't matter. Well, if I mute them and can't hear them, that means my audience can't either.
Mm-hmm.
So it shouldn't matter.
Okay.
But I'm not worried about it. I don't think it'll come up. So.
Okay, and I let him know about the topic. So I sent you that screenshot if you just want to run it down, from there. So he's all good.
He can pick what he wants. It's fine. So all right, thanks, man.
For sure. Bye.
Yep.
Hello?
Hey, what's happening?
What is going on?
Not much. Sorry for the confusion.
No, you're good. It's been a long day.
There was this... Do you know who Bobby Fischer is? He's the chess player.
Yep.
I heard this story once. I don't know who it was. One of the World Championship matches, he intentionally showed up like an hour late because his opponent was this dude that was like very fastidious, and it like disheveled him to where he played poorly. So I didn't know if that's what was going on here, but I don't think I'm any Bobby Fischer either. So I don't think.
No, yeah, I know the story you're talking about. I think it had to do with concerns over the amount of lights and spotlights that were on him.
He claimed that they were spying on him, that there was like recording devices that were there and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he got a bit crazy towards the end of his life there, even worse so than he already was during the, younger years.
Were you going to use your camera or not? You don't have to if you don't want.
I would. I try to tell the guy that DM'd me, I don't have a camera set up on this computer. I have cameras set up everywhere else, but I don't have one set up for this computer.
Do you mind then if I just use what I'm showing instead of the Discord screen will just be my screen, so you won't be able to see my camera here on Discord? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I'll shut off my camera and I'll just do it that way. As long as you don't mind. I don't,
No, you're good.
All right. I'm ready to go if you are. It doesn't have to be anything formal or anything like that. I'll just kind of explain what's going down. And
yeah, sure thing.
Okay. So
he sent me a list of stuff to go over.
You can talk. You can take whatever topic you want. I didn't even know this debate was happening, to be honest with you. He had mentioned last week if I wanted to do a debate on Thursday. I had a bunch of stuff going on, and so he was like, "Yeah, he's still doing this debate today." I was like, "Oh, okay, sure. What's the topics?" And he sent me. But if you wanted to talk about something else or any or all of those, I'm totally cool with whatever you want to talk about. So.
Nope, these lists work. I debate every day, so I was just telling them that you should hop over onto Twitch or TikTok. I think they lowered the amount you need to get on there. I think it's 400 or something like that. So.
I'm trying to get to that level. I thought it was 1,000 what I was reading, but yeah, if they lowered it, that's good. I do this as a hobby. I have a full-time job, so I don't have a lot of followers or anything like that. But that's okay. I still enjoy doing it. But yeah, I would love to be able to live stream on TikTok. I think it'd be great.
So,
real quick, right before we jump in, what can I call you? My Doode, or do you have another name you'd like me to call you?
You call me Dude or Tommy, whatever you're most comfortable with, whatever you remember.
Dude, one of my favorite movies is Big Lebowski, so that should be...
I'm the dude.
So, and then just before we get going, can you tell people where they could find you? And then I'll make sure to put those links below too. That way, if people like what they hear or dislike, they can come shake their fist at you or whatever. You know.
Yeah, it's my_dude on TikTok and Twitch. It's News Dude over on Insta, but I don't use that very often.
And Dude spelled Doode, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Good deal. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks so much for being here. The only other thing I'll say is last week I tried to do this with a streamer. It didn't work so hot without a moderator. If either of us at any time decide that we want to do like a timer, I could do that. I could bring a timer up, and then we could each go like 1 minute uninterrupted. I don't think it should have to get to that, but just to let you know.
Yeah, RTP's a good debater. But I don't know his debate style that well. I've just heard good things. So
disagree on that, but that's okay. So, all right, yeah, you could start off wherever you want to go. I'm fine with.
Yeah, if you want to go down the list, or you want to pick out, I don't know, the 3 or so things that you want to do that are...
Well, let me see that list. I didn't look at it all that much. I mean, honestly, I could talk about critical race theory. I don't know how relevant it is today. Biden corruption, COVID and vaccine tyranny, it's all good. Transgenderism, it's not something I talk about a lot, but if it's something you're passionate about, we can. Russiagate, I could talk about. Left-wing fascism and hypocrisy is great. Biden's record and Trump's indictment, I could do any of that.
We could start with left-wing fascism or the Trump indictments.
Okay.
We could do Biden's record, basically the bottom half of that. The vaccine stuff we'll come back to. I debated vaccines for a long time, so.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. So then, left-wing fascism. Sound good?
Sure.
All right. So, I think it's sort of a misnomer the way this is labeled. I don't really look at the problem as left-wing versus right-wing as much as I do establishment versus populist. I think that predominantly the left is the group that has accepted culturally sort of the authoritarianism and the corruption. And so we get away with it. That's why you can see, Black Lives Matter will, riot against small areas or inner city areas. And then they'll leave places like Chase Bank untouched because Chase Bank and Starbucks and Nike could say Black Lives Matter and that slogan's all that matters. So I think that the left has accepted that as long as this culturally they're winning the culture war and this authoritarianism is occurring in the name of causes they like, that it's okay. But I do think that it's more than left-wing fascism. I think it would be left-wing, or I think it would be establishment authoritarianism.
Okay. So you do understand Black Lives Matter is a movement with 26 million people that showed up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I'm not sure where that comes into authoritarianism. Like people acting as authoritarianism has to do with like deconstructing institutions.
Well, right. I'm not saying that like the on-the-ground people of Black Lives Matter are engaged in authoritarianism. What I'm saying is it's an example of how it's not a left-right issue. How the left will accept institutions that normally they would have criticized that engage in corrupt or authoritarian behavior as long as they pay lip service to these slogans. So the fascism, or I won't call it fascism, I'd call it authoritarianism, that we see is allowed to occur because it is done so in the name of left-wing issues, and because the left has won the cultural battles at this point, that's why this authoritarianism is allowed to go. So, for example... go ahead. Go.
Well, I just to point out, like, most protests were peaceful. You're aware, right?
Well, that's sort of irrelevant. The majority of Trump rallies and protests were peaceful as well, right?
So I wouldn't say that that's irrelevant. I think it has to do more with an undertone of what a movement is for and what it's about and what the undercurrent of a movement is. In no way, shape, or form would the undercurrent of Black Lives Matter be destruction of property or violence.
But the problem is that it was ignored or accepted by people in institutional power. I believe because they wanted the country to look poorer going into the 2020 election. So when you say it was the majority of them, I live in a small town. Absolutely true. They had a Black Lives Matter rally here. That rally didn't have any violence whatsoever. It was probably 50 people that showed up. They, said some slogans. That was it. The problem is even the data that I think it was Stanford that put out that the left always cites that said 6% of the rallies had instances of violence. But that was just 6% of the locations. There were 212 instances of violence at these rallies that we saw. That would be what, like 4 per state? That would be considered a violent movement by any stretch. If it was
the actual numbers are over 10,000 protests.
But the locations of the protests...
You're right that they did count locations and where these turned violent, but they also did not include... These were done by right-wing extremists, like provocateurs, which there is evidence and a lot of it that was included, or if the violence was started by police.
Right, and I understand that that's a defense that people will use of Black Lives Matter. That's not a defense that you would accept if we start talking about January 6th or something like that. Nonetheless, we could see...
I wouldn't equate attempting to loot or burn down a Macy's or a Target to trying to overthrow a 230-year democracy.
What about May 30th, 2020?
Just to point out, I would not include that in that simply for the fact that when we're talking about January 6th, we're talking about a coordinated effort from the top down.
From who? Coordinated by who?
I mean, sorry, what?
Coordinated by who?
By multiple different factions, but the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, was just sentenced to 22 years today. Ethan Nordine, Jason Biggs.
So let's talk about this. So they coordinated an attempted overthrow of the federal government, is your argument?
Rhodes, yes.
And they did so without taking any weapons.
Doesn't matter.
So they were going. So what's their plan? They're going to get in. They sit. The Chewbacca-looking guy sits in the chair, and then they're in charge now.
A stupid attempt to rob a bank does not mean you didn't rob the bank.
Let me ask you this then. Do you think that because there were people that taught... What were the communications that you're aware of that Enrique Tarrio was saying we're going to overthrow the government?
There's numerous different ones that are listed in the complaints, but this is pretty well known. In fact, who put it together? I can't remember who put together a video of their actual involvement, but yes, they did on the ground try to overthrow the United States government. There was coordination to try and go in and stop the certification.
Well, stopping the certification is different than trying to overthrow the government.
Well, I mean, if you stop the certification effectively, if that is the mechanism to overthrow the government, which they believed it was, then yeah.
But that's nonsensical, because if the certification wouldn't have happened that day because they were there without weapons, and therefore the certification couldn't have happened.
Well, they weren't. So hold on, there wasn't people there without weapons. There was a lot of people there with weapons.
Name them. What types of weapons?
Yeah, who is it? Anthony Fanone was, or is it Michael Fanone? He was literally tased in the back of the neck. He had a heart attack.
Michael Fanone. Right, now I'm aware that there's no. Go ahead.
The QAnon shaman had a spear. There were people that had guns. There were two different groups. There were ones that went to the Trump rally that were screened thoroughly to be near Trump, and then there was a different group of people that weren't screened as well. And those people included knives. There was pipe bombs placed the night before. There was spears, like I said, tasers.
So the spear, let's be clear, the spear was a flag, correct?
Still spear.
That's the claim. It's still a spear. It was a flag. So that would be like saying...
It's still a spear. It's still a spear. The fact is, it has a metal point to it. They went there. He went into the Senate chamber.
Okay,
I don't know
so
why.
just to be clear, so
Could you bring it on a plane?
Okay, just to be clear, any left-wing rally that...
Just real quick, could you bring a flag on a plane? Yes. Could you bring a flag with a spear on a plane? No. Why? Because it's a weapon.
So just to be clear, if we see any instances where there was a left-wing rally and someone had a flag, the type of flag that people normally have that have a little top on it, you would say that they also brought spears?
No. I would say that in this, I think that you're trying to remove the context of in why the QAnon shaman was there, which was to overthrow the United States government, as was the theory of literally everybody else there. They were trying to stop the certification, stop the steal. That's the reason they were there. We have over 600 people that have been convicted. There's endless court documents all showing that this is why they were there. When you take that in conjunction with the fact that they brought weapons and were violent towards police, made threats towards different politicians, like, you can take that in context. If you were to take like a Trump rally at some point and it turned violent between a handful of people, that would not be indicative of like all the Trump supporters there. Right? In the same way that, like, it would not be indicative that a few people are causing a riot after the Eagles win the Super Bowl. That doesn't make all Eagles fans. You know what I mean?
No, but it's absurd, because you're saying that because people thought that the election was stolen and they wanted to stop the certification, that's tantamount to an insurrection and overthrowing the government. That's absurd.
That's not the only thing that they did. They had very clear goals to stop the certification, which would be a seditious conspiracy, a conspiracy to overthrow the standing government. And those people like Stuart Rhodes and the Oath Keepers talked about it in text messages that were put on trial. Same thing with the Proud Boys. So that
regardless
goes above, just to be clear, that goes above and beyond people that went there with the intention of stopping the certification, right? Like, these
It does not. So these activist judges and activist prosecutors are going after that are trying to make this claim that somehow this was a serious attempt at an insurrection that didn't even bring firearms, that's trying to say things like flags are spears and things like that. It's nonsensical. And you can see the double standard of them. For example, would you say, did any of them have Molotov cocktails?
Did any of them have Molotov cocktails?
Yes.
As far as I'm aware, no.
Would you agree that a Molotov cocktail is a lethal weapon?
Can be.
Okay, so then how do you explain the fact on May 30th, 2020, a bunch of left-wingers rioted outside the White House in an attempt to physically remove Donald Trump from office, attacked to the point where 47 Secret Service agents and police were injured, and physically burnt down a guard station, and yet none of them were prosecuted even remotely to the lengths of any of the January 6 people?
None of them were prosecuted. What was the name of the people involved?
Well, they would be lefters that were there protesting George Floyd. I don't know if any received any sort of prosecution. What I said was the prosecution wasn't remotely to the level of anything that occurred January 6th.
You created the intent of them trying to remove Donald Trump from office.
Why else would they be breaking into the White House?
They're breaking into the White House?
Yes.
Are you talking about when they literally had a fence around the White House?
That's correct, and they tried to scale and remove that fence. They burned down a guard station surrounding that fence.
Okay, but is there a coordinated attempt to overthrow the standing government?
Well, don't you think that there should be an FBI investigation to see so?
Was there?
No.
So what indication would there, what probable cause would there be, or reasonable suspicion would there be to open an investigation, or is this just the intent you've implanted on them?
Well, the intent, the actions itself to physically harm the President of the United States in an attempt to break into the White House, where they used lethal weapons and burned down a guard station and injured 47 cops, would seem to suggest the need for a massive investigation. Not just...
Do you know that there was an investigation into whom exactly?
An investigation into...
Is it general rioting or is it specific people?
Well, it would be more than general rioting under the same circumstances you've suggested. General rioting would be that they're burning buildings around the city and things like this. This was targeted to the White House.
We're talking about intent. There has to be intent.
So how would you know... Let me ask you this. How would you know the intent of someone before you investigate?
So you get what's called reasonable suspicion,
right.
Like you arrest someone, or there's some sort of evidence that emerges that indicates that these people had some sort of coordinated attempt to do X, right? And then that's what you want. If they have a coordinated attempt just to riot, that's not a thing that you can get charged for that, right? The same thing with like January 6ers, they got largely charged with entering a government building and not with seditious conspiracy, even though that may have been their plan, because the attempt, the intent of them was like not up to par with like creating an actual conspiracy to overthrow the government. It was more of like a general intent type thing, right? Like I'm going in there without a real like construct of how this is going to happen.
It's just so absurd. It's an absurd.
Go
ahead.
Well, I just want to point out, like, the Trump administration was in office, so if you have any gripe with them not launching an investigation, it's against the Trump administration.
Well, no, because Trump didn't have control of his FBI. The FBI is an institution that will exist beyond Trump, Biden, Hillary, or any of those individuals, and they've exhibited their propensity to be corrupt. Yes,
Bill
corrupt.
Barr,
Yes,
Christopher Wray.
yes, corrupt.
These are all Trump appointees, Trump judges. Like,
Trump chose poorly. Trump chose poorly. Yep.
Okay, so he's just bad at it?
Yes.
So what's more likely? That he's just bad at making these appointments, which I think is telling about his presidency, or that they could find no evidence that there was some sort of seditious conspiracy? Because what I'm getting is you're upset that they didn't go after these people for seditious conspiracy and have provided no evidence that they did.
Now, what I'm upset with is the complete double standard in the application of the law. The actions that were taken May 30th were more severe than the actions that were taken January 6th because there were actually lethal weapons that were deployed. Let me finish. I would patiently let you finish. They deployed lethal weapons at guards. 47 guards were harmed. And on every institution in this country, from the FBI to the mainstream media and on down, chose to act like that was something that wasn't a big deal. In fact, the Democrat line on this was making fun of Trump because he had to be escorted to a bunker. And when it comes to the FBI and me saying they're corrupt, if you would like, we could show the evidence of how Republican and Trump-appointed people in the FBI engaged in a coup against Trump, unlawfully spying on the Trump campaign. So it's not just me.
It bounced around to a lot of stuff, but yeah, there was a January 6th rioter who had a gun that was charged with 7 years. But just to point out, when you're talking about crimes, you're talking about two things, right? Crimes, especially the one that you're talking about, which would be a seditious conspiracy, requires intent. It also requires planning, neither of which you have illustrated an intent to bring people in or a conspiracy to do X. Donald Trump went and hid in the bunker when we thought it was funny because nobody had actually breached the fence.
The reason no one breached the fence is because the Secret Service and the Capitol Police knew that the lefties would be violent because they're violent all the time. So they had enough people. Please let me finish. Please let me finish. So they had. Let me finish. You'll have a chance to respond. So they had enough police and security there to prevent that sort of escalation. If we listen to Capital City Police Chief Sund, he talks about how he was intentionally sabotaged by the Sergeant at Arms working under Nancy Pelosi, that they refused to provide adequate people that would have been able to prevent the breach. It was almost like they wanted the breach to occur January 6th. That's the words of Capital City Police Chief Sund.
Yeah, he also had to resign for how bad of a job he did. It's kind of weird you're pointing to him, but we can get to that in a second. But what you have to provide is intent, and you haven't provided any intent. If there was intent of someone to, like, legitimately overthrow the United States government, they should be prosecuted left or right. But you haven't provided that intent. You've just simply stated there's a double standard because these people weren't charged. Like, you think that the law is supposed to be equal, and it's not. It's supposed to be just.
The law is supposed to be equal and just. Being equal is something that makes the law just. The reason that we can see this over and over, the excuse that is given by the double standards of the FBI is to say, but there's not evidence of X because the FBI chose not to investigate. For example, speaking of intent, we see video that we see of people showing up with trucks with weapons and things like that in places like May 30th. Wouldn't that speak to an effort of coordination?
If, again, you would have to provide the actual... I don't know what you mean showing up with trucks and stuff. Like,
they had trucks with, like, weapons that people were pulling out and handing to people.
Where are you getting this video from?
I've seen video. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen videos.
I have seen video of right-wingers pull up and unload bricks, and there were protesters taking videos of going past bricks during the George Floyd protests. But I have not seen anything to what you're indicating.
Those are right-wingers? How did you know that?
Because we have video of them, because we have evidence of them. There's people arrested in Richmond. There's people arrested. The first guy that broke the window at the AutoZone in Minneapolis was actually a white nationalist.
I'm aware. Just like we could see evidence that, one of the people that were in there with the camera that was in the Capitol was someone whose footage was going to CNN and was an avowed Antifa person. I'm just curious.
I mean, that's about Jake Sullivan, and he absolutely was not.
So he was a right-winger?
He is, I don't know what you would classify him. He's more of a libertarian, from my recollection, but he's not a left-winger. But you're the party of personal responsibility, so I don't know why you're blaming it on one guy with a camera.
I'm not. That's what you're doing. That's the excuse you're making for the overwhelming amounts of violence we saw on the left. The difference, by the way, is riots that occurred January 6th were ones that we could say would be bad if it was directed at governmental buildings. But at least if you're angry at a government institution, you attack their buildings, that's one thing. The left-wing riots not only attack governmental buildings, but they also attack private property, which makes them worse and were more destructive. The quantity of
worse. So you think $2 billion worth of property damage spread out over 26 million people is equivalent to overthrowing the United States government?
The only lefties that are brain dead think that this was an attempt to overthrow the United States government.
It absolutely was. There have been to date. It absolutely was. To date, there has been, 12 people that have been convicted of...
I don't give a shit that they convicted those people. If they would have convicted them...
You can't make the argument that it's not an attempt to overthrow the government when the people have literally been convicted in 3 different criminal trials and sentenced to, sentences ranging from 12 to 22 years for attempting to overthrow the United States government. That's not a good argument.
No, my argument is that the institution of the FBI and these prosecutors are corrupt and engaged in a double standard in the first place. You appealing to them as the authority, saying, yeah, but they charge people that's what you're doing. Your argument is let me finish.
Convicted them.
I don't care that a DC jury that would convict Trump or Trump supporters of anything convicted him.
That's what I'm talking about. Hold on, really quick to my chat. This is what I talk about frequently, right? It's they're all waiting on Donald Trump. Where's the conviction? And then when the conviction happens, it's fraudulent. It's never that they're wrong. It's never that we have the evidence. It's never that the evidence is public and you can read it yourself. It's that everybody involved is always corrupt. And if you can say that everybody involved is always corrupt, you're never wrong. Okay. You can just continually keep saying it.
All right, now that you spoke to your audience, I'll speak to mine. You could see how willfully brain dead and bad faith people on the left are that are going to make a claim that this was a serious attempt at insurrection that showed up without firearms, that plan was because they were contesting the results of an election, that this was a serious attempt to overthrow the government. And how they'll use this to say it justifies, 17 years, 22 years, that proves it, is that somehow sort of proof, while at the same time downplaying when we had actual bigger acts of violence designed to breach the White House and arguing why there shouldn't be a mass investigation of that because we can't prove intent because the FBI never did an investigation.
Yeah, someone said, what audience? Listen, so...
That's clever. That's clever.
Listen, so back to my original point. You're using ad hominems. Do you know what an ad hominem is?
I am well aware of what an ad hominem is, yes.
So you're using an ad hominem to deflect from the fact that there have been 3 criminal trials where there have been over a dozen people convicted and sentenced in accordance with our laws. And you're saying that the people that are involved in this are corrupt. You're also using a qualifier. And you're saying that these people, it's not a serious attempt to overthrow the government. It doesn't need to be what you believe to be a serious attempt. I would say that 5 people being dead, I would say that over 700 people, or 900 people being charged and over 600 people being convicted is serious. I would say that the attempt or even threat to potentially overthrow our government is serious. And I 100% bet you that if it was Black Lives Matter that did this for the intent of installing someone that was supportive of them, or if it was Al-Qaeda, you would 100% be on the opposite end of this. And it's because you're an ideologue. No, that's why.
It's actually, as usual, the left accuses others of what they are. We could see the real world example where we saw that violent lefties actually were.
I'm here, bro. The people are all over on my line. Who are you talking to? Can you stop proselytizing? You're literally just
get your point out. Finish interrupting, and then I'll finish my point. Go ahead.
You're talking, you know what I mean? Whatever. Go ahead.
You literally just talked to your audience and announced, this is what... Please, I understand the need to... I can see as you get frustrated, the more interruptions will come. You literally just talked to your audience and said, this is what right-wingers will do. This is what these people will do. Then when I retort with a similar rhetorical tactic, you then say, I don't like that rhetorical tactic. I'm right here. So I'm sorry if I don't take your criticism seriously there when it's something you're employing yourself. So I'll get on to my point now. Now that we've got the meta conversation about tactics done, right? The problem is that I sort of forget where I was going now. So good job on getting me off track of thought there. But the problem is we could see that these acts of violence of the left that was designed to break into the White House and could have literally killed the president. We also saw riots in 2016 when Trump was inaugurated. People rioting that were upset about that. People would have tried to attempt and attack Trump if they were able to do so then. The idea that you're saying, if Black Lives Matter tried to break into the Capitol or something like that to overthrow the election or to harm the person that you supported, you would be freaking out. I wouldn't. I would say that those people that engaged in acts of violence should be charged with it, but we shouldn't be going after everyone, even those that were non-violent that were there, and charging people that weren't there for 17 years and 22 years and things like that.
Well, listen, I just want to say that I can't take any of the damage that was done seriously because I don't believe that they were legally and rightfully convicted.
Right, I understand the appeal to authority. What do you have?
No. I'm just saying, like, this is your logic. I don't know how you're upset about.
How's that my logic? Where have I said that? That if people
I don't know how you're mad about Black Lives Matter protests and the stuff that's happened. I mean, very clearly, it's just like everybody involved in it. There's very clearly provocateurs. There was some guy with a camera that was filming for CNN.
That's
very clear.
That's your argument. That's the argument you made. You were talking about umbrella guy and stuff like that.
This is the argument that you just made.
That is not the
you're
argument.
You're saying that we can weigh this away, and what you're doing, which I find funny, is because it's not comparable at all. Like $2 billion worth of damage, or however much it was, it's not comparable at all to attempting to overthrow the United States government. It's not justifiable at all that you would do this. And I just want to point out, like, there are some people on the left that are like me. I just don't care about the damage. I don't. It's all insured. They get business shit.
What about the people that died? Like the person that was burned alive.
A person that was burned alive?
Yes.
What the fuck are you talking? You think Black Lives Matter behind that? They're like, yeah, go in here and kill people. What
yes,
the fuck?
That's exactly what happened. They were burning down buildings, and they were unaware that a person was in the building and burned alive. That person, I believe, got 10 years, less than Enrique Tarrio.
It's kind of like there
were dozens of people that were killed as a result of Black
Lives Matter. Where are
Lives
you getting this from?
So
there are people that died in proximity to Black Lives Matter protests, as there are people that die, like, in proximity to a lot of things. But to say that Black Lives Matter is inherently responsible for it, or somehow because when you're talking about Black Lives Matter, you're talking about a very small percentage of people that actually conducted violence. When you're talking about January 6th, you're talking about everybody.
Charge remains.
I just want to point out, like, the whole thing of going to Black Lives Matter is a complete deflection from the fact that your party did this, and you guys continually defend it, even though it's indefensible. And I don't see the same. What I see is, like, when someone brings up January 6th, you guys bring up Black Lives Matter, and then we have to go through navigating you caricaturizing the entire event, because that's the way it is. Because that's the way that you've just dragged the conversation. Well, what about Black Lives Matter? I don't really think that it was a good thing either. And you're out here like, oh, you're associated with this, therefore you're wrong to criticize us for attempting to overthrow an institution that we claim we love.
We didn't attempt to throw an institution. One, I'm not connected to it. I wasn't there. Second, I argued on the day of January 6th, anyone that was engaged in acts of violence should be prosecuted. Third, it's different that when I'm saying that the reaction to it was an authoritarian reaction that was based on the absurd claim that this was a serious attempt at an insurrection. Fourth, when these very people, I give you a chance. I gave you a chance. I gave you a chance. Did I not give you a chance to speak?
It's a non-serious attempt. What would be a serious attempt?
Taking weapons, like firearms, taking fire. They didn't. You said one guy had one. I'm not aware that that's true, but even you literally. I mean, I understand the need to fill when you're not doing good in a debate. I understand the need to interrupt and filibuster. I get that, right? I sit here patiently while you talk. I would appreciate if you give me the same courtesy, and then you could say your piece afterwards, right?
I do this every single day, man.
You're not good at it. I can tell.
I can tell you're getting frustrated.
I'm not getting frustrated. I don't need to keep interrupting like you.
Is this, what the fuck? Because you keep saying things that I'm trying to get you to clarify and specify on, and you keep using them, and you're being non-specific. I don't know what you mean a serious attempt at a coup is, because I think any coup is bad. In the same way that I think any attempted murder is bad. I don't care how serious or unserious it is. In the same way I think that any attempted SA is bad, no matter how dumb I think the criminal may have done that did it. In the same way that not every coup across human history has been violent. You aware of that?
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. Now, what I'm also aware of, do you need to keep filibustering? Go ahead. I'll leave you filibuster. Go ahead.
We're qualifying it as, other words, nothing that you can present. This is you. Nothing that I can present to you, you will accept as being serious. You asked for weapons. I gave you weapons. I gave you convictions. I gave you amount of people. I gave you as much information as you've asked for, and you have rejected at every turn to accept any of it as being serious. So I really don't know what. I really am really unsure as to what it would need to be for it to be serious in your eyes, unless you're an ideologue, and there is no metric that I can make, which I think is the case.
Okay, now that you've got done interrupting and filibustering, I'll repeat what I was saying. It is absurd to say that this was a serious attempt at an insurrection that was done by the same left-wing people that tell us that, what do you mean that you need access to firearms to protect yourself from tyranny? You would never be able to overthrow the government with your rifles or your ARs. They have tanks. Are now trying to tell us in the same breath that a bunch of people showing up with one firearm and spears, which are really just flags, were almost taking over, was a serious effort to take over the United States government and to overthrow it. It's absurd. It is hyperbolic, and it's used to justify this authoritarianism. Please, I gave you an opportunity to speak at great length, so I would like my opportunity to talk now.
All right, go ahead.
Right, thank you so much. So you can see that it's hyperbolic and that it's something that's used to justify this authoritarianism, when we could see that there were greater acts of violence and things like that that occurred in the riots that we were constantly told wasn't a big thing. You already heard, the person I'm talking to here, Tommy, say he doesn't care about the property destruction and things like that. Well, a bunch of people died. Police officers were hurt. People lived in fear. He might not care about the property destruction, but parents that were small business owners and things like that lost their business, they certainly cared about it. And what you see is the disproportionate amount of violence that we saw from the left going into that summer, and the disproportional reaction from these institutions saying, oh, it's mostly peaceful, or it's the language of the unheard, versus the largest manhunt in the history of the FBI, throwing blue-haired grandmas that didn't commit any acts of violence in jail, leaving them there for years, and a bunch of other people that didn't commit acts of violence, because this was a top-down serious attempt to overthrow the government, is nonsensical.
Okay, awesome. You keep saying nonsensical, and you keep qualifying it as what you believe is just and unjust. I don't believe that it's a serious event, okay? We have over 600 people that have been convicted. Can you give me another crime in American history that has had that many people convicted?
Right.
One singular event.
That's exactly my point. Thank you for
I'm asking you, can you give me one singular event that has that many? They broke the law. Whether or not you want to believe it, they pled guilty. A lot of them admitted guilt in court, and they've already gone through victim impact statements. There's a whole bunch of people that have already been convicted. Can you name me another crime that has had this many people? There isn't one in American history.
I'll answer, I'll answer, and you'll let me...
Can you name me another crime? Excuse me, I'm still talking. Can you name me another crime that if 600 people were involved in it and had pled guilty, you would think it was not serious? And I before you answer that question really quick, I just want to point out that your entire gimmick here is to say that you don't feel it's serious, and that's how you're running defense for it. I don't think it's serious. I don't care what you think. Serious is subjective. There's over 600 people that have been convicted. There's over a dozen people that have been convicted of seditious conspiracy, and you qualifying it as not being important unless it's, quote, serious, or it has to be a serious attempt for it to be a coup, is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay.
And that's how you're running your whole defense here.
Okay. So, no, you're absolutely right. I can't think of another incident where the FBI has had this sort of manhunt to go after nonviolent people, predominantly nonviolent people, to ruin their life so that people like you could say, but look how many they got, therefore it must prove that it's a serious incident. I can see riot after riot, including those directed at the White House, with far more lethal weapons that the FBI chose not to go after, and it seems to me that this points to the double standard that I'm talking to. Your appeal to authority saying, but they got a bunch of people, most of which were nonviolent because they happened to be at the Capitol, when we could point at other instances where people were violating the space at the Capitol and things like that. You wouldn't want, for example, Black Lives Matter if someone would have breached the White House that day, right? And let's say there were a handful of people that planned on breaching the White House, and they did so, and there would have been people afraid in the White House. You wouldn't want the people that were there that were peaceful, that happened to be protesting, that were also there at the White House, even if it was declared, okay, you all have to go home. You wouldn't want them to spend decades in jail. You wouldn't want them to be massively investigated by the FBI. You would say that would be some sort of tyranny. You would have been saying, had Trump's FBI done that was an act of tyranny, that was an act of authoritarianism. But instead what happened was when Trump was attacked, everyone on the left, and I believe you admitted, I'll ask you point blank, I'll give you a chance to answer this, I believe you admitted that the reason you laughed at Trump and made fun of him for having to go to a bunker was because they didn't get in. So you can see the differentiation of the left and how people will make excuses, including the FBI and Democratic politicians in the media, when there are serious attempts to breach the White House to cause physical harm, which would be tantamount to overthrowing our government if they attacked the President of the United States.
Please be a little bit more concise and stop monologuing, because everybody over here is getting really bored.
You literally are talking as long as I am. You're monologuing. I'm reciprocating how long you're talking.
A bunch of things. Here's the facts of the matter, okay? There have been over 600 people that have been convicted, and they did that because they broke the law. You're saying that violence is somehow, right? This is what you keep saying. Well, they were nonviolent. It doesn't matter. That's not what they were charged with. It's not an element of that crime. I don't know why you keep bringing it up. They weren't charged or convicted based on being violent, because that's not an element of the crime. It would be like someone being charged with trespassing and be like, well, they didn't rob somebody. It doesn't matter. That's not what they're being charged with. So I don't know why you keep diverting to something that's not an element of the crime. They broke into the Capitol. Many of them had ideations. Most of them had ideations about stopping the steal, as lied to by the 2020 election, and about the disinformation coming out there. And there's nothing to argue about there. They committed that crime. They admitted to it. They pled guilty. There's over 600 people that have pled guilty. I don't know what you're talking about. Even like Ethan Nordine. Like, he's not even going, oh, I didn't do it. No, he's going, oh, fuck, I'm so sorry. All of them are. They've all admitted. They're like, oh, after sentencing, they're like, oh, fuck, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Even before they got fucking convicted. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. I didn't. So I don't know why you keep going off on these and making these qualifiers for what has to be. This has to be a qualifier for it. It has to be what I deem to be serious. It doesn't have to be what you deem to be serious to be a seditious conspiracy. It just has to be what the law requires, because that's the. So I don't know why you keep arguing that. I don't know why you keep making this like, oh, it's not serious. It doesn't matter. It's not what the law says.
The problem
is a conspiracy. They went to jail.
The problem is the unequal application of the law. So individuals and political movements will come and go, but these institutions... I understand the need to interrupt. I understand that I'm sitting here... I understand the need to interrupt. I totally get it. I know when you're not doing well, the need to interrupt, and I understand you're upset and you're kind of getting animated because you're not doing well. I totally get it. But if you patiently wait, you'll get a chance to respond when I finish, just like I sit here and patiently wait for you.
You're muted over my...
I don't care if I'm muted on your end. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not going to allow you to filibuster over. I sit here patiently.
You have not given me anything.
We'll see you later.
So if you're going to make that, I want you to do it. And I will hit you with the mute again on my side, because I don't...
That's the end of it? So, all right. So that was the end of that debate. Not going to deal with someone that's muting me when I'm sitting there patiently, and they feel the need to filibuster. It's absurd. What we get from that is you can see the double standards that will be employed by people on the left to justify the acts of violence that were committed and the unequal application of the law. And then, like always, what they'll do is point to the authority figures and say, but look, 600 people were arrested and things like that, and that proves... Well, we could have said the same thing. You could have arrested everyone at any one of these left-wing protests when it was declared an unlawful assembly. We could have arrested 600 people many, many times. And we would have said, who cares if they were charged with violence or not? The fact is they were charged. Can you think of another instance like that? He rightfully would have said, but that seems draconian. It seems like a very authoritarian policy to be able to do something like that. That's what he would have said. If the police would have arrested 600 people at Black Lives Matter and said they were protesting off permit, they weren't allowed to be where they were trespassing, him and the left would have went apeshit and would have said, we're not going to put up with this, we think it's authoritarian. So to default to that argument is just nonsensical. That's what we're talking about with the two-tiered justice system in the first place. If that's the argument he wants to make, then why wouldn't they have arrested all of the people, even those that committed non-acts of violence that were rioting outside the White House on May 30th, 2020? It didn't matter if they were committing acts of violence. There were people attempting to break into the White House, which is an attempt to overthrow our government, even if it was just spontaneous. So why not treat the rest of the people there that were illegally protesting because they were in an area where they weren't allowed to be because it was declared an unlawful assembly? Why weren't 600 of them arrested? That's the problem. The other thing is, when I say it's not just about my standard, it's about that it is laughable to claim that this was a serious attempt to overthrow the government. He says, well, it doesn't matter if the attempt was likely to succeed or not. It's the planning of it that makes something like this. But this would be no different than saying that people that went and protested, such as in Nashville after the trans shooter, that planned on having legislative differences or planned on having political things that were changed, were also attempting to overthrow those systems. So, thanks, Achilles. Thanks so much. I would have loved to have talked about other things, but I'm not going to put up with, someone like that. Regardless of what you think of my position or not, the fact that he found that he was going to continue to interrupt and then he was going to mute me, I don't have to put up with that shit. I don't. It is clear that he knew that he didn't have a handle on the facts and a handle of being able to discuss these things in the two-tier application of the law. And so he felt that he needed to rhetorically do things like complain that I was talking in big chunks, which was reciprocal to him talking in big chunks, and to continually interrupt and things like that. So from now on, that's how I'm going to deal with people like that. I'm not going to allow them to sort of, I'll be polite. I'll leave them have their say. If they choose not to do so to me, then they can just bend out. So, that's an argument that you'll see over and over, and it's sort of a litmus test to understand if someone's operating in good faith or not. Thank you so much, Dex. Really appreciate the cheer. If they legitimately believe that this was a serious attempt at insurrection, therefore it justifies all of these other people that were there. Let's say that it was true that 12 people thought that they were planning something, but they didn't have serious weapons or anything like that. They had spears. Oops, I'm sorry, I mean flags. And they were there to overthrow the government. That was a serious... They were going to occupy that building and then somehow that leads to them controlling the country or something like that. Now, let's say that that was the case. What's that have to do with the hundreds and hundreds of people that were peaceful, weren't engaged in acts of violence that had nothing to do with that planning? Nothing. Nothing at all. Pathetic cowards own it. I called out the acts of violence that were occurring January 6th, the day that they were occurring. More than the left did. I'll bet your boy that I just debated there, Bloody Cornell, and yourself, can't call out you calling out real time the acts of violence that we saw the left committing, such as trying to break into the White House. I'll guarantee it. You justified that violence. You excused that violence. You ignored that violence. And then when violence occurs on the other side, you act like it's the biggest deal ever. He talked about 5 people dying. I didn't get to respond to everything he said. 5 people died. Right. The Trump supporters. We were told that Officer Sicknick was killed by them. That was something that was never been able to be proven. It was something that they lied about the details of. Yeah, Ninja was watching my video about that. Yes, yeah. They need to continue to spread the meme that this... Again, the same people that tell you, what good will your 30-06 do? How can you defend against government tyranny? The government has Apaches and nuclear weapons, says Eric Swalwell. But they almost overthrew the government with a flag and zip ties. And then when we see the left attacking the White House and literally burning down a guard station, well, we don't know what their intent was. Okay, how about we investigate and find out? They chose not to invest. This is something that happens all the time with our corrupt FBI. They choose not to invest. For example, we have an obvious crime that occurred through Hillary Clinton's team where they deleted subpoenaed evidence. Clear case of obstruction of justice. Doesn't get any clearer than that. FBI has them dead to rights that they intentionally deleted subpoenaed evidence. Clear case of obstruction of justice. And yet, instead of charging the people that they would be able to find out did that, they decide to give everyone immunity. And then, once they give that immunity, they say, okay, Paul Gambetta, who told you to do this? He says, I did it myself. And they're like, well, you talked to Cheryl Mills, Hillary Clinton's attorney, 2 or 3 days before you deleted this subpoenaed evidence. What was that conversation? I don't recall. And the FBI says, okay, good enough for us. Yeah, I hear you, Aftershock. I thought that I went into this debate trying to be sort of affable, tried to be even-keeled, didn't raise my voice or anything, because as bad as that debate was last week, and my opponent was absolutely abysmal, engaged in some of the similar tactics that you saw here today, I thought that I reciprocated by showing that energy. Today, I was like, I'm not going to show that energy. I'm going to keep it even-keeled. That was my thought going into this. I tried to allow him to say his piece, even when it was lengthy. Even when he interrupted me, I would pull back and leave him after he interrupted me. A lot of times it's difficult because it's hard to keep your train of thought if you're genuinely listening to a person and they keep interrupting you because you're trying to listen to what they say, so sometimes you forget what you were going to say. So it does become difficult, but I went that route and said, okay, I'll let you continue to interrupt and say your piece, but at some point I have to say, okay, you've said your piece, I would like to say my piece. And you could see, I would have loved to talk about Russiagate and the FBI. Notice when I brought up Captain Sund, he said, oh, he had to resign. He did terribly. Right, let's look at the facts of what that was. Sund was basically, the blame was thrown on him. We have actual proof of audio recordings of him requesting backup some 41 times and being denied. So how is it that he's at fault? Well, it doesn't matter because it doesn't conform to his narrative. All he knows is 600 people were convicted and that's good enough for me. Notice how the left will make they pleaded guilty. That must mean they're guilty. As if they don't know that their argument's been correctly over and over again. Just because someone pleads guilty, if they're pressured by a corrupt law enforcement system, doesn't mean that they're actually guilty. People plead guilty all the time that aren't guilty. He brought a spear. Yeah, that flag. And you can see them start to make I don't care about the property destruction. Exactly. That's sort of the point that I'm making. So hyperbolically has to say, this was an insurrection. It was an attempt to overthrow the government. The FBI told me. Matthew Graves, prosecutor at Matthew Graves, told me that. That's what they told me. But I don't really care about the property destruction from the left. It was mostly peaceful. So, yeah. So, sorry that didn't amount to more than what it was. But I'm not going to leave him. It'd be different if I was talking over him and he's like, look, I'm going to mute you on my end so that people could hear. That's one thing. But the way that's shaking down, where he's insisting upon talking over me to the point where he'll mute me after I sit there and patiently, I'm not going to put up with that. So it is clear that he was a coward. He was unable to allow me to speak or to have his audience hear me speak because he knows that he doesn't have a command of the facts and that he knows he won't be able to defend this double standard. And so he has to employ rhetorical tactics like meta conversations saying, can you please hurry it up? You're talking in big, long blocks, when that's exactly what he's doing. He has to continually interrupt, has to mute me so his audience can't hear. That's the sign of someone who's desperate. That's different than muting because someone's continually talking over you. So, anyways, I guess I'll wrap up here for the evening then. But yeah, I'm glad I stuck around for an hour to have that go on. Yeah, let me be clear here. Despite all that, I don't even know what the guy's handle is. My Doode, I think was his handle, but Doode just spelled a little bit. Please no one harass him. I don't want that. I don't wish any ill on that person whatsoever. So don't harass or brigade or anything like that. If you want to, I can't control you if you want to message and say, hey, I thought you were rude or something like that, but I don't recommend it. I don't think that it's something... Has my multi-stream worked well? Does it slow down your system much while streaming? Before I got my new computer, it did. It did. But now on my new computer, it really doesn't. I got my settings set right, and I think we're okay. Yeah, I agree, Dash. A neutral moderator would have helped. I tried my best. But anything else people want to bring up? I guess I could stick around until 10 o'clock. So anything else people want to bring up? Anything that you thought I was incorrect about? Yeah, that's fine, Wonder. I get it. I'm not telling people they can't message. You're all your own people. But I just, I honestly don't wish people ill. Did I read out the super chat? I didn't even see them. I was debating, so I didn't see the super chats. Do you got a list? Everyone that super chatted, thank you so much. Let's see if I could see if I go to my YouTube channel what those were. I don't see them. Let's see. Top chat. Yeah, I can't see them. I don't know how to see them. Yeah, if you wanted to help me out, you could follow me on TikTok. Once I get to a certain number of followers, then I'll be able to live stream. The only problem is talking about January 6th, talking about left-wing fascism. Well, that's okay. Obviously, I think you can't blame me or him for that. It was sort of a loose conversation, so I wanted to talk about authoritarianism on the left. Obviously, January 6th is going to come up because that's the linchpin for justifying that sort of authoritarianism. It's not authoritarianism because people like me deserve it. Trump supporters deserve it because we're violent insurrectionists. The super chats go away is the problem. I thought I got most of them as they were going, but obviously I couldn't. So I see Achilles. The dude got salty for $10. Thank you so much. He did get salty. Did I miss anyone else? You sent them to me. Okay. That's Spear. Thank you, Gizmo, for the cheer. Really appreciate it, man. DJ Farmboy. Can't believe Rob ran from that debate. There you go, DJ. Now you got it. Where'd you send him? Bandit248 for $2. Thank you so much. Says he was disrespectful. Completely agree. Achilles Ware for $10 says the dude got salty. Yep. Imaginarium for $10 says you can always count on the left to stand for law and order. This dude is a clown show. LOL. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely true. Thank you all so much. And to anyone who donated on Twitch, thank you as well. I really appreciate it. Any cheers or subs? Now, you notice I offered at the beginning that we could put a timer up and each talk a minute at a time. Didn't want that. Instead, he wanted to just talk over me the whole time, and then when I got a chance to talk, decided he was going to mute me. I'm not going to put up with it. Yeah. So, all right, we got 5 minutes. Well, I don't even really mind the talking to my chat thing that much. I don't. And I'm not going to say I've never done that. But it was that in combination with sort of everything. Argumentative-wise, I understand we have a fundamental disagreement. His argument is this was an insurrection, and it doesn't matter that you think that it had no attempt to be achieved. There were convictions that show that it was, and I'm like, but I'm saying that there's a two-tiered system, and I think this is being blown out of proportion. But it's the constant interruptions and things like that. And I also like when there's the criticism of things I'm doing in response to things he's doing. So he talks in a big chunk, and then I do, and he complains about that. Or he talks to his chat and says, this is what right-wingers will do, and then I say, this is what left-wingers do, and he goes, I'm right here. Who are you talking to? Like, right, you just did that. Like, I'm not complaining about your tactics. Please forgive Rob. What did I do now? I got the Imaginarium super chat. I really do. I appreciate it. He does support me. Imaginarium I've seen many times in here. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll try to, Ogre. I'll try to get you another. I'm getting it. Tomorrow, it's going to be brutal. Like I said, tomorrow's my anniversary. So I don't know how much I'll be streaming or doing anything tomorrow. In fact, I know how much I'll be doing. 0. Because I work all day, and then I'm actually trying to go out to dinner or something with my wife and my son for our anniversary. Thursday, maybe I'll get to doing some stuff. I got a new microphone for my phone coming in. So hopefully I'll have some better audio for TikToks and things like that. So thank you, Robert Whaley. I appreciate it. Well, Reckless Ray Dinero. We all had to start somewhere, but I've been doing it since like 2019. So I started a long time ago. I am bad at YouTube, though. Let's be honest. Thank you, Ray. I think that I'm a great debater, but I don't do content that necessarily is sensational to the point that it will get a bunch of clicks and stuff. And I do long-winded shit. I like doing live streams that are multiple hours. That's not easy to consume to get big numbers. That's why I'm trying to do shorts and YouTube and stuff like that to try to grow my audience in that sense as well. But I don't market myself well. I don't have an ability to edit and stuff. I'm not consistent because I have a full-time job and a family. This isn't my career. It's a hobby. So, yeah, it's fair to criticize, you don't have much of an audience, he said to me at one point. Fair. It's fair criticism. Doesn't make the veracity of my argument any weaker. So, let's see, we got 2 more minutes. find someone to raid here. Starting to think the Twitch debate crowd not that good, huh? Just a gut feeling. Oh, lecture fans on. So we'll raid him here at 10. But no, sorry that it's... Apologize to my audience that it started late. Apologize that it ended the way it did. He was a TikTok streamer. His name's My Doode, I think was his name. Jerry's panels are at 7 o'clock, and I normally can't do that because I'm working until at least 8. I told her that if they ever want me to come on late or something like that, I should probably be able to do that, but I can't do 7 o'clock. That's going to be too early. Well, I would... So, two things about jumping in the space with Clint Russell and Vosh. One, it was occurring when I was supposed to be debating. And second, until I get the new microphone with my phone, when I talk on spaces, I sound like I have a terrible lisp. So hopefully I get this microphone. It's supposed to come in today, I think. Crizzle says, Dude W. Good for him. He's got a fan. Good work, Crizzle. Well, I think because Labor Day and stuff, I think it was. So I ordered it last Tuesday or Wednesday, so it should be in. It's supposed to come in today. I didn't talk to the wife to see if it came. Yeah, I sound terrible. It's almost indecipherable what I'm saying. No, it's definitely something to do with my phone. It's worse than you would imagine. It's really bad. So. He has 3... Oh, the guy debated has a bunch of TikTok fans. Good for him. Because I lost. Ogre's going to watch my opponent instead. Finally, my agenda pays off. Yeah, thank you, Conservative Carnage. Yeah, I don't have much of a lisp in real life. Maybe the slightest. I definitely have an accent. I was shocked when I would travel around with debate that people knew I was from the Pittsburgh area. But all right, we're raiding Lecture Fan. Let's see what he's up to this fine evening. His stream says anti-global warming, pro-fossil fuel. So I don't know what he's talking about this evening, but Lecture Fan's a good guy. So for my Twitch followers, you'll be able to see Lecture Fan here. Thank you all much. Thank you all so much. Everyone who donates me, I really appreciate it. Consider checking out that Give, Send, Go to Let's Be Frank. Please consider checking that out. He's a really great guy, and he could use your help. I'll put that link up again, but please consider checking that out. He's going through a tough time with his house being damaged in the hurricane there. So any support you can give him, I would greatly appreciate. I really would. So the link's there. Please check that out. He's a really good guy. I think you guys, if you don't know him, you should follow him. Awesome guy. I appreciate all the donations. I'm sorry if I didn't call them all out. I'm really sorry that the debate started late. I'm sorry it didn't go, longer. I was willing to stick around for a couple hours, but unfortunately, my opponent had other ideas apparently. So, but no, I appreciate all of you. I will see you at some point, maybe Thursday. So hopefully we'll see you all then. Thank you so much. Enjoy this raid of Lecture Fan. As always, have a good one.
Those same judges that had said that this is a bad law, we're against it. Those same judges are then going to be the judges that, holy cow,